Happy Saturday, Conscious Crew. It is your favorite breakdown commentator, CTV. Welcome to another riveting episode of the Consciouztv platform. You guys already see what we're here to discuss on this God-given Saturday. Now, YouTube is playing like a mother with my notifications, so please thumbs up as you enter the building, whether you are a part of the Replay Gang, actively in these YouTube streets in real time with me, or you are a Bush baby. Run those thumbs up, because when you thumbs up the video, you are literally knocking on the digital door of another conscious crew member and telling them to get their arses into the sanctuary. Also, make sure that you guys are subscribed, and shout out to all of the new subbies. Make sure that your notification bell is set to all, and last but not least, please share the stream out to wherever it is you have digital community, whether that be your YouTube community wall, your Instagram, your Snapchat, your BGC, your Facebook, the dark side of Twitter, Tumblr, or your personal OF. I don't really give a damn where you lay the link. Just let them whores know that we're loud, live, and in color. And with no further ado, let's go ahead and push on through.
I know a place where you can recharge your soul.
Baby, that's Consciouztv.
And in the midst of brokenness, he gon' see your asshole.
Baby, that's Consciouztv.
You gon' heal, you gon' laugh and catch a little shade.
Ooh, girl.
Y'all know he be slaying, y'all better stop playing. Come hear what he's saying.
Ladies and gentlemen.
All right, let me speak to everybody in the building. What's going on? Max got facts. Hey, Rumors and T. Hey, Sin. Hey, Rena. What's going on, Juanita? I have my handy dandy co-host in the background, and we're going to be having this discussion, which I think we tried to do last week sometime, but we end up having a whole nother type of talk. So we had time today and said, you know what? Why not? Let's get into some more useful content, something that your sort of kind of faves could never do. Okay. What's going on, Tyrus the Warlock?
Man, how you doing?
I am doing pretty well, feeling pretty good. You know, I was in like a weird little something for the past 3 weeks, but the last 3 days, I like slowly kind of came out of this comatose state or this hibernation I've been in. I literally feel like I kind of came out of a cave and walked back into the light. How are you?
I'm good. Been having a great weekend so far. Shopping with the girls, you know, getting ready for my wife's birthday / Valentine's Day. It's been productive.
Can't believe you're married to an Aquarius. That's wild.
What? What does that mean?
It means I cannot stand Aquarius men, but I love Aquarius women. Like, Aquarius women are very different from Aquarius men, but them Aquarius, there's something else.
Yeah.
Well, happy early birthday to the wifey. Are you here to get into this discussion because you've already kind of rendezvoused with this topic over in the Manosphere? Y'all were getting into a thizzle regarding this subject. How do you feel that dialogue had went?
Man, you know, it's tough because I want to say it was productive, but I'm not sure.
Oh. And what makes you uncertain?
You know, one of the big problems that I have a lot of times is that we as men, we want to be treated as leaders. We want the accolades and everything that comes with leadership, and yet we got a lot of men, especially young men today, who lack the ability to give themselves a good gut check. You know, for all this talk of leadership, there seems to be a lot of finger pointing.
Who do you think the finger's being pointed at?
Everybody but themselves. Like, a lot of these discussions, unfortunately, it's always something. You get what I mean? And while we all acknowledge that there is always something that's, you know, whether we call it a barrier or a straight up wall, like, you know, we it's gotten to the point where we got a lot of doom and gloomers amongst men today and it's really having a negative effect.
And let's put an address on it. They're pointing the finger at women, pointing the finger at the LGBT, pointing the finger at the pale man, which I never mind them pointing the finger at the pale man. The pale man always got something to do with something, but definitely a lot of finger pointing. Well, we're going to get into a news clip that has been surfacing over in the Manosphere, and it is courtesy of PBS News Hour, and it is going to discuss something called a friendship recession. Okay, why a growing number of American men say they are in a friendship apocalypse. All right, very fascinating. So we're going to get into this clip, and of course, this is covered by no other than Fair Mother Freaking Use, which I'm going to put up here on the screen. What's going on, TS? What's going on, Forehead? Who says brain? Be happy. That part. All right. All right, let me share my screen here, and let's go ahead and get into this news clip. Once again, courtesy of PBS News Hour. Let's check this out.
Stuck in what's been dubbed a friendship recession, with 20% of single men now saying they don't have any close friends. And more than half of all men report feeling unsatisfied with the size of their friend groups. I recently traveled to Phoenix to take a closer look at the implications of male loneliness and how some men are confronting it.
A great way to start off 2024, just another meetup.
On a recent night in Phoenix, a group of men gathered on a rooftop bar to talk about their goals for the new year.
I'm training for a half marathon. My first one ever.
Spend more time with family. I have my grandparents, like my grandfather, and he'll be 91 this year.
Wow.
Make moments like this where I can sit and talk and look for mentorship and even offer it.
This friends group was started by 38-year-old Quincy Winston. After leaving the military in 2015, Winston moved to Arizona with his wife, LaToya, and started working as an IT specialist. But for years, he says he struggled to make friends here. Were you feeling lonely and disconnected?
Definitely. Especially when it came to having male friends. I didn't have any, and that lack of connection put me in a place where I didn't know exactly what to do about it.
So, in March of 2022, Winston turned to the social media platform Meetup and decided to invite other men to a local restaurant.
I think we went to a restaurant called Papa Do's, and I didn't know who would show up or if anybody would show up.
Sounds nerve-wracking.
And it was awkward, but once the guys came in and hearing some of their explanations and what they were looking for, I found out we had a lot more in common than I thought.
7 men showed up for that first event.
Are you guys warm?
Which Winston says only happened because of his wife. You encouraged him to form this group.
Yeah, I wanted him to have a social life, like outside of just us doing things together all the time, which was great, but I still felt like he needed to have guy time and guy friends.
Yeah, she made it very evident that I need to go make some friends.
Go disappear for a little bit.
Now you have some friends. Yes, come back. Go. Yeah, chicken is.
Thoughts so far? Or do you think that we should just let it run and then rewind it back? You're on mute.
Just for, I guess, a side note or a cliff note, if you will, especially men transitioning out the military, it is very common for our wives to be like, yo, can you get out the house? Because we have a very, even now, we have a real strange ability to go in hermit mode real quick. Because during the military, it's easy to go out and be with your homies and be with the squad and everything like that. But the civilian world is different. So you get a lot of wives who's like, okay, can you go get some sunshine and stuff like that? That's pretty normal.
Did this news clip say that this guy started this group in Wisconsin. I believe it was Wisconsin. I think I heard they moved to Wisconsin, is what I believe I heard. What I find interesting about that is his name is Quincy Winston, who moved to Wisconsin. Wow. And what I also find interesting is that his wife is in all smiles, completely enjoying the fact that she basically told her husband to get the fuck up out of her face immediately and go make America gay again. All right. Now, had she just would have made him a damn ad on Backpage on Craigslist, his social life would have got popping real quick. Real quick. But okay, let's continue to check out Winston and the barbecue with the bros in Wisconsin.
One more time. I'm just grabbing the hot dogs right now.
The men still meet up about once a week for activities like this backyard barbecue. Winston's meetup group now has nearly 130 members. It speaks to the need for connection that your group is that big. I mean, is that how you see it?
Yeah, it does. And, you know, with all the technology we have to keep us more connected to where we can communicate instantly with anyone, anywhere. But if you notice, we don't talk as much, we text more. A lot gets lost in translation because we just don't have that physical connection.
I'm the newest member of the group, but I'm also one of the oldest members of the group.
Connection is what 61-year-old Robert Montgomery was looking for. What motivated you to join this group?
My whole thing was I said I needed friends. Because I didn't have any. I got tired of being, basically isolated at home all the time, and I spent my birthday at home by myself. And I didn't like that. I was like, okay, no, I can't do this anymore.
Montgomery is certainly not alone. Only 21% of men in the U.S. say they get emotional support from friends every week. That's compared to 41% of women.
Sometimes as men, we struggle to say, I need you.
Richard Reeves is the author of Boys and Men, Why the Modern Male is Struggling, Why It Matters, and What to Do About It. What is driving male loneliness? Why do men have such a hard time forming friendships and keeping them as they progress through life?
You can't neglect a friendship and expect it to just grow. You have to work at it. You have to find the time. And my observation is that many women are just better at doing that and building it into their lives. So it's lack of purpose. So.
Reeves also says over the last 4 decades, there's been a steady deterioration of male friendships.
For men under the age of 30, 15% say they don't have a close friend. And that's up from 3% in 1990. So we have a really difficult challenge now of helping men to find places, spaces, and ways to be with other men and to sustain those male friendships.
Last year, the U.S. Surgeon General issued an advisory outlining the devastating health effects of loneliness and isolation, including increased risks for heart disease, strokes, and dementia. And while men make up slightly less than 50% of the U.S. population, they now account for nearly 80% of all suicides.
I think these statistics on young male isolation and relatedly of suicide rates is part and parcel of this displacement that we see of time away from friendship.
What should we be doing to reverse these trends?
We do need to be intentional about male friendship. We need to be intentional about combating against male loneliness, and that we have to create spaces that they're not going to create themselves.
That's at the heart of Men's Sheds, a nonprofit that began in Australia in the 1990s and now has 27 locations across the country.
So then I have to go through here then?
Yeah.
The goal here, to reach older men who now have the highest rate of suicides in the U.S.
Now, if you guys are wanting more context about what you're looking at Tyrus and his military pals about 10 years from now. Okay.
I hate that it's so accurate, man. Why you gotta do me like that?
Work things, the work friends, and then most men struggle to get a circle of new friends.
74-year-old Phil Johnson has helped start several men's sheds around Minneapolis. A couple of times a month, these mostly retired men come together to both work on projects and to simply sit around and chat.
Men feel more open about talking to guys like themselves about health concerns they may have.
A couple years ago, yeah.
So the research shows over and over again that men do best when they're doing something and they can do it together.
It's a chance for men to share a laugh, but also seek advice.
We tackle some tough problems like suicide, which is higher in retired men. We've had 3 men that I know of that have lost their spouses. And there's always going to be somebody else in the group can say, hey, here's how I did it. Here's some ideas. Here's something you should try to do.
And no, you're not alone.
Yeah.
You have brothers, you have a pack, you have a tribe, you have a family away from home.
Back in Arizona, I was invited on a morning hike with Quincy Winston's friend group, an outing organized by 29-year-old Nick Crum, who says joining the group has exceeded his expectations.
It's just grown so much, and we've been able to meet so many quality people, so many people who actually want to be vulnerable, talk about the things that we like to talk about, talk about our life, build that genuine connection with one another.
That's exactly what Winston says he hoped for when he created the group.
We need each other, and we need to support, uplift, encourage, and motivate other men to, seek friendship.
Quincy Winston now wants to expand his friend group beyond the Phoenix area, so meetups like this one can become more common for men across the country.
Figure out what we can do to bring people together.
For the people.
See, the men out there in the mountains by themselves, I wonder just how connected they're getting out there in them Brokeback Mountains.
Good Lord.
News hour
activity
in Phoenix.
All right, so that was quite the unpacking there. So,
what do you think about that?
Well, a short recap. We learned from the news clip that women are more fulfilled by 40% in their interpersonal relationships than men, coming at a pitiful 21% satisfaction in their interpersonal relationships. I think some great feedback was some great gems were dropped by one of the educators or speakers or authors who said, that men need to be intentional about creating these spaces and cultivating meaningful relationships, that this isn't like lightning striking. It's not going to just fall out of the sky, that these are issues that can be curved, but it's going to have to come by way of intent and men willing themselves to carve out these relationships. I also kind of want to push back against him though, because he said that, when he was asked, why do you think that women are more fulfilled or satisfied than men are in this area? He said, women just seem to be better at it. I don't think that women just seem to be better at it. I think that women are better at it because we literally, in terms of we, a society, we socialize women to be better at these things.
I gotta emphasize your point real quick. The fact that this guy's educated clearly, at least on the male's perspective, but gave such a vague, and non-answer to that was disappointing, in my opinion.
Probably was for the sake of time, they probably edited it out, because since this was just only like an 8-minute segment.
Yeah.
I'm sure he probably had more to say, but because here's what's interesting to me about the whole women just are better at it, because I've spoken about this so many times on my platform and said that the things that we believe make men and women inherently different from each other are actually not inherent. Like, a lot of that shit is just a product of socialization. Like, you welcome women to embrace their emotional body, to actually embrace their feelings, which can lead to the development of emotional depth emotional maturity, emotional awareness, and emotional intelligence, which is very necessary, especially when it comes to developing interpersonal relationships. This is what makes women better at being nurturers in a relationship, mothers, why women probably feel more called to actually take care of their seed, while men, you know, can seemingly, relatively speaking, more easily detach from the parenting style. And it's just because, once again, this society aids and abet women in becoming empaths. And I feel like if we would just also make some of that socialization available in the lives of men, that men also could easily also grow up to have the same level of emotional depth, the emotional range, to have value regarding their emotional body, and have that relationship to their emotions, because understanding your emotions is significant to your evolution and growth as a person. There's so much data in the way we feel. The way we feel tells us so much. It communicates so much to us about our perception of the world, our experience of ourselves, our experience of the situations and circumstances we find ourselves in. And if men are, so to speak, handicapped in this area, I'm really not surprised that men don't know really what the fuck to do when they're in their feelings. Men have for a long time only been narrated as having only two ranges of feeling. They're either stoic, happy, or enraged. Those are kind of the go-to stereotypical emotional states of men: stoic, angry, or happy. And there's more channels on the dial. There's more stations on the dial than just rage, numbness, and or happiness. But before we go any further, your thoughts so far about the socialization. Do you think that socialization would make a big difference in terms of men's development, emotional development, if it was actually prioritized?
I think the amount of positivity that would come out of it would be a boost, but it wouldn't be sustainable without getting to the root issue, which would be the fact that guys, we actually rally around and we make friends over like a certain goal. Like, for example, that I know it's funny, but them old guys, they're more likely, their groups are more likely to stick together than, unfortunately, the homies on the balcony, because they're actually engaged in an activity like woodwork. You get what I mean? Like, there's something productive, something that here's the end goal that we all achieved as a group. And that's like emotionally, like how, or at least from my perspective, that's how a lot of us, you know, we get those bonded moments, and we build meaningful relationship with the guys. If it's just, I've never really seen it where a group of random guys can just get together just on some barbecue stuff, like intentionally get together. There isn't anything really a unifying factor there, and they actually like keep that meaningful engagement, at least just from my perspective.
Winston just knocked you out of the ballpark, though. He just proved you. He just proved you wrong.
Yeah, I'm glad it's working out for him. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, there's been a lot of effort all around, and unfortunately,
But
the
not
numbers keep
just
getting
him.
worse.
The men in the group are fulfilled, as we heard some of the men say. This exceeded their expectations. They had no idea, you know, that so much fulfillment and camaraderie, and how much of a void filler this would actually lead to. And a lot of them are pleasantly surprised, and they with it. they're with this fraternity that they have stumbled upon because of one man's intent to say, you know what, I can't sit here and complain. I'm just gonna have to throw myself out there and see if this bait, takes hold. And he attracted other men in similar predicaments. So the bond that you're talking about, in this case,
it's work and it's working.
The nuclear or the nucleus that's holding this together is the commonality of the lonely issue. It's what's forging and motivating and bringing us in together. So it doesn't necessarily have to be over cars or have to be over hunting. But I mean, if it's just a common need, like that's enough for human nature to start bringing worlds together. If everybody has a desire and goal in mind. Right. Now, what's fascinating to me is going back to the socialization of it all. It's like, we like to think of like women as being like naturally better at love, but it's just like, no, when you've been raising that woman since she's been 2 and 3 to play with baby dolls and to nurture something that's not even sentient, and you're giving her easy bake ovens and you're giving her domestic chores, and then she grows up to be a teenager who's also given tasks and domestic chores, and she's having to wash the doodle stank skid written draws of her parents and her brothers and her sisters. You damn right that's going to add to another level of intimate relationship to my community, because I'm literally being put in scenarios that almost force me indirectly to bond or put me in this position to have this like intimate awareness of the people that I have to see every day and the community in which I come from, etc. Oftentimes, the girls, if they're old enough, they're left to be the stewards of their younger siblings because they also have more domestic skill set like cooking, cleaning, meal prepping, etc. So they oftentimes can operate as a substitute mother figure, etc. And I'm just like, if you also introduce these things into the lives of boys, once again, we too could grow and evolve emotionally and also tap into this intimate awareness of our environment and the people that we live with, if you also put us in the position to be nurturers at a young age, and you make that a routine in our lives until we become adults. I just really can't believe that this society, who manufactures everything, who man makes everything, who social constructs everything, actually believe that men and women are just kind of born as they are, as if the socialization and the indoctrination and the training has nothing to do with nothing. We're literally training girls to be women and training boys to be so-called men. And yet, when we get to the conversation and we're trying to evaluate, well, how the fuck have the sexes split off in 2 different directions? How is it that men are from Mars and women are from Venus? That, it just must be because of some mystical as reason, that comes from some spiritual domain as to why women have strengths in this area and men have weakness in this area. Men have strengths in this area and women have weaknesses in that area, when most of that shit, the bulk of that shit that makes men and women different, that makes male and females different, has nothing to do with biological, scientific fucking differences. It has to do with the way in which we are literally teaching and raising and cultivating both genders. This is literally why you want the son to go live with his dad, so his dad can teach him to be a so-called man, because the culture of men is different from the culture of women. This is why you want women to stay girls to stay under the stewardship of women, of their grandmothers, of their mothers, because there's a different culture, a different reality that's given to them. It's not that we are inherently different from one another as male and female, men and women. We're just given two different social scripts, and we're raised accordingly to those things as it relates to our gender, our sex. So as far as I'm concerned, this is not a trigonometry issue. Men just need to incorporate some of the things that have been given to women that have made women more successful and more emotionally healthy in these ways that have been absent from our community, because there are things that weren't really taught and given to us as a priority, like how people feel per se was not. How I feel, hell, as a male was not a priority. You know, we're taught to straighten up, to, you know, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, that boys don't cry, that feelings are for the weak, for the gay, for the sissy, for the punk. That's not what you do as a man. You are task oriented. You are strong and robotic, and you go do something. You get yourself out of your damn feelings. That's for women. Feelings are for women, and that's what's beat over your fucking head. And so as a man, you grow up to detach yourself and to be stoic in this way. You really come under the belief that to have grievances and sadnesses, to have anger, to have vulnerability is a symptom of some type of incompetence, and it makes you deeply insecure as a male. And then, God forbid, you be a heterosexual male who is attracted to the opposite sex. You finally stumble upon like these interpersonal relationships with the feminine, and you have no, or you struggle to really take care of your woman emotionally, because that's not been a universe and a world and a part of the multiverse that you were taught to go graduate from. So when she can't get you to understand how you're making her feel and how your actions are impacting her, and she's trying to illustrate to you, or you can't understand why she's maximizing certain things that are minimalized to you, and there's this profound emotional disconnect between you and her. And as far as you're concerned, she seems to just be tripping. She seems to just be doing too much. She seems to just be, you know, out of control or insecure or etc. I think when a lot of men speak this way and they interpret their women this way, or interpret the women in their lives this way, that it's not necessarily because they're intentionally trying to be manipulative. I think niggas literally just don't fucking know. They're literally ignorant. They're literally just like, somebody can't give you what they don't have. And they can only see the world based upon the way they've been taught to see it. They can only see it from their lens. They can only see it from their capacity. And there really is a disconnect. And it's demonstrated even in the gender war that exists now between women just being incredibly fatigued, feeling misunderstood, quote unquote, feeling completely unprotected. That's not just physically, but feeling abandoned intellectually, feeling abandoned spiritually, feeling abandoned emotionally by their male peers. And now we are learning through the creations of the Manosphere and the Passport Bros sector and all of the little Kevin Samuel clones that he birthed, and through this friendship recession, that even men can no longer really sustain this disconnect themselves. That is also injuring them. And men are starting to become honest about what this socialization has costed them and the damage that it has done to their lives. While they may be great at making money, they may be sufficient in their careers, they may have all of these accolades to show for their masculinity, their personal lives fucking suck. Their interpersonal relationships to the divine suck. That there seems to be substance that's lacking, that they have a bunch of stuff, but they don't have any substance there. And this is killing men, which is why I want to bring up this article called The Atlantic Voice, the Atlanta Voice, which is captioned "Black Men in Isolation is the silent issue we all need to catch." I want to read some of this. Oh, and St. Marquis made a great point. I see why males are bullying women into settling for marriage and forcing women to be submissive because they are lonely as fuck. Go figure. What's going on, Harold? Hey, Sabian. Hey, Dion. So this article by the Atlanta Voice says, Black men in isolation is an issue that's not getting enough attention. Experts call it a silent epidemic as men who isolate themselves develop terrible health conditions that could ultimately lead to death. Matter of fact, let me share this before we go any further. There is a way to prevent that outcome. Licensed mental health counselor Dr. Lewis Hines explains this topic, what to look for, and how serious this matter is. Quote, it gets pretty serious in a subtle way. Social isolation leads to loneliness, and loneliness can lead to mental health conditions, including depression. If your depression is serious enough, it can lead to suicide, said Lewis Hines, CEO of Lewis Hines and Associates. Black men in isolation is a problem that affects more people than we realize. Studies have shown that people are social beings who need others around each other. Unfortunately, men tend to be more lonely than women. Psychology today suggests that women are more comfortable being vulnerable to expressing loneliness than men. Men sometimes process vulnerability as weakness and usually hide those feelings. Dr. Hines' expertise matches that details as he explains that men hold feelings and thoughts to the extent that they can be detrimental. Quote, men keep a lot of stuff in their heads. They don't like to talk. They don't like to express themselves. And they believe they have to do things by themselves. They don't like to be vulnerable with their emotions. These are all signs that can lead to loneliness and perhaps some mental defects, said Dr. Hines. Men can go into isolation for various reasons. Usually it's from a life-changing event that disrupts the social connection. Men who retire can fall into loneliness. Men who are single, divorced, or lost their partner can fall into loneliness. Signs people can look out for regarding this issue are changes in routine. Isolation can affect your sleeping and eating habits. Suppose the isolated individuals are more irritable and have a noticeable difference in their behavior. In that case, that is a sign to acknowledge. A more significant sign is men who isolate close friends and family. Men who keep to themselves isolate the close people they usually don't want to be away from. Connection puts life into people. Being alone for long periods is not healthy for individuals. Dr. Hines explains that isolation was a tool used for punishment and discipline during wars in world history. He further elaborates that prisoners then lost their minds to psychosis because of extended isolation. Today, solitary confinement placed in a small isolated space is a consequence for incarcerated people. Solutions suggested by Dr. Hines that you can apply if you are dealing with isolation and loneliness are learning to be vulnerable. Talk about your thoughts and feelings. Next is to go outside for some sunshine and exercise. Be conscious of what you eat, Dr. Hines advises. Not to consume too much sugar, alcohol, or drugs. The doctor also recommends contacting people, lining up plans, or calling to check in. Those small steps can lead to huge strides in resolving the problem. For those who see their male loved ones being isolated or socially withdrawn, Dr. Hines encourages persistently checking in on them. Deliberately give words of encouragement, talk to them, and invite them to plans so that they can come out of the metaphoric cave. Quote, family and friends should definitely reach out to guys, especially if you find someone not reaching out to you. As men age, we tend to want to be by ourselves, creating a cave-like mentality. When things bother us, we return to the cave and isolate ourselves in the dark, gloomy places. Sometimes men never come out of their caves, said Dr. Hines. If the previous steps fail, the last option Dr. Hines proposed is therapy. According to the National Institute of Health, men are less likely to seek mental health services than women. This problem perpetuates feelings of down and loneliness amongst men. Therapy is a no-shame step that can solve the issue of isolation. Dr. Hines encourages and applauds those who need it and seek it. Quote, it's a big leap to commit to in your head to go get help. I've seen a lot more men come forward seeking mental health services. I applaud them all the time. They are taking steps to fight depression and remove the stigma behind mental health, said Dr. Hines. What's interesting about that is when I think about, like, because I've become a recluse myself, like, I do not, especially in this climate, what I've noticed is, oh man, this is a very multi-layered issue. It's so much going on.
I mean, Conscious, would you agree that being reclusive is a little bit different than just straight up hermit mode? Like,
I just want to be, I don't want to play the game of semantic. It's clear that this article is talking about like hermit mode, even if it's using the word like, you know, isolation, but it is talking about extreme isolation. It's talking about when it's unhealthy, you know, it's talking about people who are deeply withdrawn, you know, it's talking about, you know, those obvious things. This article is in no way not talking about the healthy necessity of personal time and self-time, but it's talking literally about when that loneliness is the product of sadness and depression and men's inability to find language to express what it is they're feeling, because maybe they've been taught and socialized, once again, as we were talking about earlier, to not bring life or voice or vibration to those feelings, because you feel inadequate as a man. You're taught to feel inadequate as a man, and you're damn sure not taught to even engage other men from this vibration of vulnerability and brotherhood and intimacy. Those are things that you are taught that are only appropriate between you and your relationships to the opposite sex, but not to other men. So there's a plethora of shit, you know, that contributes to that. But continue on.
Yeah, I really like this article. I would like to, if you could put that in the back chat, I'd like to read through that again.
Put it in there now.
Yeah, it just has me thinking of like my homeboys. You know what I mean? Like, I know I'm kind of quiet. It's just because, you know, I'm going through like the memory bank, you know, and it's crazy because you know, the article really hit home because, again, like, especially the guys who hit retirement, or like us who got like medically discharged from the military and stuff like that, and then medically retired. It's like it's a lot easier for guys. That's what I was kind of saying. Like, I didn't mean to make it seem like we had to have an activity, more like what we was doing. But a lot of guys, conscious, as you know, we make a lot of work friends initially, or like school friends, and then that's where the lifetime bond comes on, where we're like, hey man, come on, kick it over, have a beer, watch the game. You know what I mean? Like that typically stems from whatever you're being productive at, right? Because as men, we're taught we got to be the providers. So all of our free time, if it's not at school, it's at work. And so that's where a lot of our social interactions are going to come from, and where any of our friends come from. And so, like, when you're retired, all of a sudden you're not in that like environment anymore. And more importantly, you're not in an environment that you're used to. Everything feels foreign, especially if you've been doing something a certain way for a long time. Right? Like, it's definitely multi-layered.
Yeah. I'm glad you touched on that, because I was just going to say, you know, a lot of that, like, men usually find other men to bond with by being active, and that also is a byproduct of the socialization too, because as you just noted, we are taught to be the breadwinners, we're taught to be action oriented, so oftentimes like we find and connect with other people as a result of being in motion. We don't know how to like be still and be which, you know,
you know what, Conscious, I can actually be open to the idea that us being constantly in motion is a bad thing, because like you're alluding to, we're really taught that stagnation, or just like taking a pause is detrimental to everything.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't do that.
No, because you are raised as like from a young person, like as a man, you are always on. Like you are literally designed to do. Get your ass up and do. There is no rest, even when it's the weekend and you should be able to lollygag. Like a lot of our parents still, were making us be active. Like, and even if it was summer break and you done spent, damn near, the entire year in school, now you need to go to a camp, a summer camp. It's always do, and this is literally ingrained into our existence in such a way that it seems second nature, and we think that it's nature, and it's not. It's actually nurture that creates a lot of our gas break, a lot of our the way we're stimulated, a lot of our secondhand habits, etc., all just come out of the way we've been cultivated. I was going to say that I noticed that when I am not feeling like myself, and that is visible, that it's not really the men in my life who can clock it. If anything, I have it's the women who are you okay? Is everything all right? They can, feel that and see that. The men in my life aren't really observing themselves or really observing the other men in their life in that nuanced way. But the women are paying attention, and they've once again been socialized to pay attention because they have been given the task of taking care of the community and staying up on making sure that things are well and things are taken care of and things are clean and things are prepared and the baby's not crying. And so they've been socialized once again to pay attention and to develop this emotional bond with the community, with other human beings, etc. This is something that has been missing from the way that men have been cultivated. So for me, I'm just not surprised that women are better at kind of reading the room than men are. They're better at, women are so skilled at this that this is how a lot of vixens are able to also trick men out of their spot, because they understand human psychology in a way that men don't. Men have not been socialized to pay attention to human psychology. Once again, we are more trained in the cerebral workspace, corporate, goal-driven way.
Hyper masculinity.
Hyper masculinity.
Maybe not toxic, but definitely hyper masculinity. Conscious. Think about school, right? Even during school, what do we put in after sports? You're going to go to play football or basketball or baseball or soccer or something. Always tapped into that testosterone, that hyper masculinity. We're cultivated to be tapped in like that and sustain it.
Hey, look, I just opened up to someone in my life the other night, and I was completely honest about the way I was feeling, and I said some pretty dramatic things, and this male was just kind of move it along. We kind of just went on to another subject as if I hadn't just unloaded the clip in the most dramatic way the clip could be unloaded. And I remember having a distinct feeling in that moment of that was completely pointless. Why even inquire? Or why even seek out an understanding or ask that level of question and then be that completely unprepared?
But that's a double-edged sword, right? Because in one hand you're correct, but on the other hand, that means if a lot of people took that perspective, then none of the guys will ever have a chance to ever correct it. Because why bother? You know what I mean? Sure, at that moment, yeah, it was oh, right? It was that awkward pause or whatever like that. But I guarantee you he thought about it afterwards. Something tells me that next time that happens, if it happens, you might have a different reaction. You're just, it's just for us guys, you're not gonna, so to how you unloaded the clip, it might surprise you, right? Maybe, but what's crazy is
it wasn't a reaction that was off. It was the like inability to not have a follow-up after I had like opened up Pandora's box, and I was just
because initially we don't know what to say to that, right?
Which is a question of like, why are you even inquiring when you know you don't know the terrain in which you are attempting to, like, you know, step out and voyage?
We're explorers.
Yeah, but you're exploring, you know, to my detriment, because I don't want to go there and tap into all of that just to kind of be left in suspended animation. You're ultimately going to abandon me once you've opened the chest box, and then I'm the one left to, you know, maybe sit in feelings I didn't even want to feel at this moment, but because I'm trying to have an intimate moment and you're meeting me halfway, I'm taking a risk and I'm going to like meet you there. But then because you're ultimately incompetent and unequipped, you left me to my own devices while you done moved it along. Right. Because your only incentive was because your only incentive was just to know, but you didn't have any resolution. It didn't have any resolve. There wasn't any.
There wasn't even
direction you were gave. It wasn't any comfort. There wasn't anything. It was just like you just opened the box for the sake of curiosity, and that was more detrimental for me than it would be for you. Like,
true, but that's a maybe, because if you engage again, and he at least does some of that, that's progress. I mean, and by the way, that means that he actually learned from that experience. That's what's frustrating is that progress where he actually learns and changes. A lot of that progress conscious. That's what we hide.
That's an assumption. That's an assumption. It's not indefinite that anything was learned. It's not indefinite that this will happen again and again and again and again. Like, you're making an assumption that this was a learning,
right? But still, you don't know until the next engagement. So any possibility
and because of the way that engagement went, there may not be a next time, because now I, you know, have a notion of what could happen, which is nothing after I go into opening up the closet door. So there may not be a next time.
So how a typical guy will respond is,
bitch, you're crazy. You're crazy. You're crazy, bitch.
What if instead of you feeling like you have to be vulnerable, what if the next time you guys are talking and he actually responds by opening his Pandora's box for you, by telling you something?
No, that's the game, though. No. See, that's what's interesting. I'm like a woman in all of my relationships to the men in my life. So they're always breaking me off a piece of the Kit Kat bar. And I'm always effectively taking care of them in those moments, which is, you know, why I become the go-to Iyanla and I become the ghetto Buddha in everybody's life. I know what to do when we flip it and reverse the roles, but they don't know what to do when they are having to be the nurturers or the teachers, or having to be
sure, but that doesn't mean we can't learn. That doesn't mean we're going to be scared off just because the first interaction didn't go too well.
Well, I'm talking to you anecdotally as somebody who has consistently been in this position. I mean, the people in my life are not learning naturally, which I know the next logical conclusion is, like, if I want things to change, then I may have to help them by informing them. But I haven't figured out how to tell. But I haven't figured out how to tell these people that they're horrible at being a support group. I haven't found a way how to make that digestible and palatable without it like scaring them off, to your point, because we know men are already scary when they're embarking upon, you know, terrain that they're not familiar with, and God forbid their egos get, you know, tugged on or get bruised, and then they shut down entirely. So also navigating the male ego has limited a lot of feminine beings from being able to like even provide information, because sometimes no matter what your delivery style is or how willing you are to educate the other partner, like the other partner will just like translate that education and that information transfer as, you know, something negative or not feel good enough, or it'll just run them off. And so it's just really a crazy thing. And I know a lot of women complain about this, like how they can't even tell their men that you're not giving me an orgasm, like, because I know it'll destroy my man's ego. I can't even like give him practical constructive feedback because I know he's fragile and weak as fuck, that his ego makes him frail as hell. And so women are largely, you know, suffering in silence because men's ego don't even allow the men to position themselves to even truly be loved, to also be supported, which also has to come with allowing transparency on your partner's behalf and you not always taking that criticism to heart. And it gets very interesting and complicated when it comes to dealing with men. And I would imagine that men find it also interesting and complicated to deal with women, or to deal with the feminine, and the feminine, you know, has its shortcomings in dealing with the masculine. And it's just, but it is obviously something that nonetheless, despite the potential drawbacks, you know, the only way truly toward the change that we all actually need is to take the roads less traveled, and to
try something new,
and to break up the habits that we know are inherently contributing to things not getting better. Like, we know for sure that things absolutely won't change without information. So at some point, we're going to have to start taking a risk and just providing the feedback. And even if that costs us, like, at least breaking up that toxic habit of being silent and suffering in silence and watching your partner go in the opposite direction real fast, all because you refuse to temporarily piss them off by correcting their behavior in real time. We got to take those risks. We got to roll those dice, because once again, only information allows for there to be a possibility of a different tomorrow. But if we keep our mouth shut, we know absolutely things are more than likely definitely not going to change for the better. But there's a lot of fear in that, and there's a lot of etc. And like, even like I just told you, I haven't found a way to tell the men in my life that they suck. They suck.
Well,
I don't enjoy. I don't enjoy talking to any of my male friends when it comes to like matters of the heart, because men are just so deaf tone to their own fucking hearts. They have no fucking way, of course, of really taking care of mine. They ain't even present in their own. They don't even open up their own closet door. They don't even unpack their own inventory properly. So it's like, I'm not surprised, but things do need to change.
You'd be surprised. To come that bluntly would obviously, it'd be a shock, but I think you underestimate how your friends would react to that.
I don't, because I've kind of like shut down too, because I have also rolled the dice in other friendship sets. And like right now, me and my best friend haven't spoken in a year, all because I had the audacity to tell him something that I believe he needed to know. And it largely was me telling him about the way I'm experiencing him. And his ego got so inflamed that he couldn't even take, or he took that feedback completely wrong. He took it to heart, and he punished me by not returning my phone call. And then his ego convinced him to not pick up the phone first, even if he wanted to, because the ego needs to win and always needs to feel in control. And I wasn't willing to give him what I knew his ego wanted. So I also let the friendship dissolve because I wasn't going to feed his ego, and his ego is what he was looking to be fed in order to permit me back through the heavenly gates. And I instead took my walking papers, because yeah. And so I've been through it. I've been through it. You know, I've done it all when it came to trying to, you know, get in here and get this stuff untangled, and it's a messy knot. And ultimately, it does take the other party. And I really feel bad for the damage that patriarchy did to men. While men thought that they were winning, it was only at face value. There's a huge damage done to the psyche of men as a result of not being head and heart present and head and heart centered. Only choosing one of those regions to live from. And I hate what all of the data looks like, such as, according to the National Library of Medicine, the depressive symptoms and loneliness amongst Black and white older adults. Loneliness is consistently linked to worse depression, depressive symptoms. However, there are a few studies that have examined whether the relationship between loneliness and depressive symptoms varies by race. The purpose of this study was to determine whether race moderated the relationship between loneliness and depressive as symptoms. Loneliness has a strong and consistent relationship with depression, depressive symptoms, and mental health. Empirical evidence suggests that the relationship between loneliness and mental health is bidirectional and likely reciprocal. Some studies have noted the strong influence of depressive symptoms on loneliness. Other studies have identified loneliness as the key factor in predicting depressive symptoms and worse mental health, even when simultaneously accounting for objective factors which could be associated with these mental health outcomes. Now, what's interesting is that this article was using the term loneliness, and I want to make it clear that we're not just talking about loneliness in terms of physical loneliness, but emotional isolation, mental isolation, the reality that people can be surrounded by a lot of people and still feel completely alone. So,
and let's be clear here too. We're just talking about a lot of this too is guys who just don't have friends. It's tough making friends. This is the big part of the male loneliness thing. You know, is I don't know what it is, but guys are the shit used to work, Conscious, right? It's just, you know, there's things today that affect us that is making us not be able to have friends. You know, like I can't speak from like the relationship aspect from a feminine point of view, like from that relationships, but just like as the male loneliness with, again, guys trying to link up and bond with other guys, man, you know, that's a lot. And it didn't used to be that way. You know, the old system was working. I'm not saying we need to double down on it. We definitely need some new 2024 and beyond tactics. I'm just saying, like, it's.
When you say that it used to work, like, can you expound upon that? Like,
the suicide rates never used to be this high amongst men. Male loneliness epidemic or the rate of drug use and depression never used to be this high amongst men. Or you know what I mean? Like, it's, you know, again, from my perspective and talking to a lot of these different dudes on the panel, man, they got no sense of direction. And again, it's hard to make friends when you're not going anywhere or you don't think you're going anywhere, because a lot of these guys, Conscious, today they seem like they don't know what to do with themselves. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm saying. Like, back then, we almost didn't have a choice. You remember when remember how we got cultivated as men. How everything you mentioned, we didn't have a choice, right? If our parents put us in, we got to do it, right? But nowadays, the kids got choices.
I'm going to. I would open up another factor. I'm not sure if it's that it used to work or that depressive rates were lower. I feel like it could also be argued that men were. So there's two things that have happened. Society has changed since our parents. Men were able to have a more indefinite place in the lives of their loved ones because there was a very strong gender role construct that existed. So men were able to have statues resurrected in their honor, really be honored and revered amongst their community for their contribution by way of being the pastor or by way of being the bread winner. I think we lived in eras where men were much more rewarded and affirmed because of their contributions, but because now we're living in a different age, women are also catching up educationally, they're catching up economically. Women can do a lot of the things that men used to only be allocated for in society. And I think that this has led to a lot of men confronting their own identities and what it now means to be in a society where a woman can be the breadwinner, a woman can take care of herself, a woman can take care of her babies, a woman can now choose a man and like a man rather than be a necessity for one. And I think because men have been socialized to be needed, that we don't know anything about what it means to be liked, to just be chosen, to just be desired. And now that monotony is being broken up in this growing society that's becoming more androgynous by nature, things are, flipping in a lot of different directions. I think that contributes to it. But I also would say that I wonder if men, because when we talk about yesteryear, we are also talking about a time up until now where men could not speak like this. Men did not have space, and it wasn't encouraged for men to acknowledge their feelings. So now, because we live in this androgynous age where women are getting to the bag, men are getting into their feelings, men now are, forced to speak, and they're carving out spaces to speak, and they're being encouraged to speak. And so men are in a position now to tell kind of an honest truth that may have been there for generations for all we know. But when it wasn't cool and trendy to talk as a man and to share that you were lonely and to be able to form vocabulary, to support the way you felt, you didn't. But this new age, because we keep hearing that term, new age, these new age niggas, these new niggas, these are different breed. I mean, the only difference is that these men talk. And like all of the studies are saying, men have historically not spoken, have historically practiced not speaking their truth, not speaking their heart, not speaking their hurt, not speaking their trauma. Papa was a Rolling Stone and oftentimes an alcoholic in order to medicate himself and to numb himself to his feelings that he could not speak comfortably. In a patriarchy, these are all, once again, the crux and the side effects of patriarchy. It served men on one hand because it put them to the front of the line, but it completely raped them of their emotional essence. It completely raped men of our spiritual essence.
Well, I could tell you from from a patriarchy's perspective, very, because I don't have any disagreements with that perspective. One of a huge perspective I always had from a patriarchy's perspective is this utilitarian thing of a lot of the manufacturing jobs going overseas. Because there was the time when, hey, you could get a job right out of high school, get that trade, get that stuff like that, get that factory job, and you were set. You got benefits, you're gonna get pay raises, all that stuff. And when I look at history, I see, okay, women came into the workforce and there was actually no threat to men until the patriarchy struck, which is, hey, how can I get more money while lowering my revenue? Oh, I know. And let's be clear, who runs all the Fortune 500 companies at this time? Conscious men. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to shut these factories down here. I'm going to reopen them in China and Mexico and all these other places for cheaper labor, and with the trade agreements, essentially free trade logistically, ain't got to pay none of them tariffs and everything like that. And so what happened is you had a bunch of women coming into the workforce, still taking a lot of more like office jobs and things like that. But then you had the whole manufacturing base right after that ripped from the blue collar working class, which created a massive like competition crisis. You know what I mean? Like labor force crisis. And that came from greed and selfishness of the corporate patriarchy, in my opinion.
Yeah. The Afro Beatnik says we have more access to information in the digital world. Does it mean that suicide rates were less, maybe less known, less acknowledged?
I definitely have a point there, Afro Beatnik. I would say this though, and even though sometimes they glorified our parents and grandparents' conscious, sometimes they glorify it. What is true is that you could look at a very great example of what they bring up all the time. The fact that back in the 70s or 80s and 60s, yeah, they used to leave their rifle on the back of the pickup truck and there wasn't school shootings and nobody stole a rifle and things like that. Like that, there's an aspect of that it's like, yeah, sure, maybe it wasn't maybe we weren't tracking the statistics then, but the reason we weren't tracking the statistics then is because it wasn't actually a problem.
We didn't. So Black minorities still don't represent the majority of school ooters to this day, but we can easily replace the school ooters of today with the members of the KKK and our
it doesn't matter. We shoot ourselves. Like, does it matter who's doing the shooting? We shoot ourselves.
Yeah, because you can't resolve any societal issue without context and origin, because everybody is ooting for different reasons. So if one group is ooting and unaliving people because of an ideology, and another is ooting each other as a means to survival, like, you can't resolve both of those things with the same remedy, because the reason that's driving everybody to take the actions that they're taking are completely different. So you have to actually,
but the common link between both of those aspects is the fact that you have a lot of hypermasculinity, male isolation, and loneliness attached to that. That's a consistent link between the two in our discussion. You know what I mean?
Well, the second one, in terms of minorities and the classic black on black crimes, is more of a social economic issue that contributes to the madness. As we can see, suburban blacks are not blazing up their communities, because we can see the correlation between economic stability and a lack of violence perpetuated in those communities. And then we can look at
You would
impoverished.
acknowledge that there's still social trauma that Black men deal with and everything like that, right?
Yeah, because when you have a social economic issue, you're also going to get.
So even though we have those things, it's still at the end of the day boils down to a lot of the mental health and things that we gotta get a hold of.
Which is what makes the predicament of minority people really fascinating, because you have your inner demons, which is a result of generational, intergenerational trauma, but then you have your external demons that contribute to the environmental variables that create mental instability and that apply like inhumane pressure onto a populace that results in high crime rates and violence, and whether it's grape, whether it's gang related, whether it's thievery, whether it's fraud, all of those things can be connected to a capitalistic system. I am SYN says, I agree. Society has put a lot of pressure on men to present masculine. A lot of men don't know how to open up and do both. Deborah Hill says, here's a fun fact. African Americans are the most unmarried ethnic group in America, 29% as of 2023.
Wait, so 70% though is married?
The most unmarried ethnic group in America, only 29% are married. I'm assuming that's what that reads.
Oh, only 29%. Okay. Damn.
But at the same time, our non-Black counterparts are like divorced by 30 and on to their second marriage by 30. So the divorce rates are high in the non-Black communities, where people may be marrying at an early age, but they also are divorcing at an early rate as well. And their first marriages aren't even like working out and not even making it until death does them part. So they have their own social experiment to deal with, but it's not like those statistics mean that the other side is in some
utopia.
It's not in some utopia, because there's issues there as well. However, speaking of that though, I'm looking at a chart here that I'm going to pull up.
Uh-oh.
How do I get us out the way? Oh, here it is. According to Bookings.education, during Black History Month, we highlighted some research and data from the recent Brookings Scholarship on employment, income, wealth, health, education, and other indicators that highlight racial gaps in America. You can peruse the previous chart here. Black men die 4 years earlier than white men. That's interesting, because you can see the chart here. White women are outliving Black men. Black women are outliving Black men, and white men are outliving Black men. And of course, like all these studies, one of the common links that I found was that this is a really compounded issue for Black Americans, particularly Black men, because there are social economic issues, there are structural issues that are contributing to the shortened or premature life expectancy of Black men. There are racial issues, there are patriarchal issues, there, to your point, Tarus, are, interpersonal, generational traumas, etc. So Black people as a whole are living within kind of like a shit stew, and men are definitely kind of lost and knotted up in that vortex of debris. Almost like trying to exist under the rubble of the Twin Towers.
Yeah. And what's also true is today, especially, we also got a lot of black men who have these benefits, but for whatever reason, just a pride, ego, just not gonna use them. You know, I don't need to see the doctor. I'm good. You know what I mean? This kind of crap, eating horrible. You know,
which also are economic and cultural issues, because if people are not economically sufficient, then it means that they're eating the scraps and what's available. And typically what's available are the scraps, or like the most affordable food generally is GMO produced.
Right. But what's true is that the majority of black people aren't in poverty. You know what I mean? Disproportionately we are, but the majority of us still aren't. And so we have to acknowledge that we suffer the same things that the broader America does. We got money and we still eat like shit.
Well,
like, think about it, Conscious. Like them fast food lines be filled not just with broke people.
It's not even just a fast food issue as well, because it's also the same issue that drove me to a diabetic scare last year, which is also the fact that you have economic issues that contribute to this, but you also have the issue of the evolved slave mentality that has continued to make a culture out of eating poorly, because we have glamorized the scraps that were given to us. So you have black people enjoying soul food, which is unaliving the shit out of the black community. So the pork, the chitlins, the hog milk, the soul food is contributing to the high cholesterol, the hypertension, the diabetes, the etc., because we literally have a food culture, and it's oversaturated in fat and sugar, and a lot of the health complications of Black Americans. Well, I mean, to your point, of all Americans, because America has an obesity issue right now in general. And of course, that is divided up amongst, all the ethnic groups.
But the soul food is specific to us, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's specific to what's unaliving us. And so a lot of the health complications, including Alzheimer's and dementia, are all linked to our dietary choices and the things that we've been munching on and gorging down. But if you also are a unprivileged, disenfranchised Black American, once again, you also mostly live in environments where you are surviving off a bare minimum economics, and you are in food desert communities where Whole Foods is typically, 10, 15 miles out, where an apple costs $3, while $3 can feed a family of 4 on a pack of ramen noodles that cost 79 cents a pack.
But of course, what are those ramen noodles going to do to your body eventually?
Absolutely keep you from making it to C35. Absolutely put your health on the brink of non-existence. And it's so, once again, these issues for minority people across the board are inward and outward. Like, we have open enemies contributing to our condition, and then we have the sustainability of the condition itself being perpetuated through generations and normalized, and us relaxing into our poison, which is contributing to all of these issues. And so ultimately it's time for a massive fucking wake up.
Man,
a massive wake up. I mean, it's going to have to be a wake up of mass proportions in order to curve these issues. Conversations around mental health and therapy and counseling are going to have to be very necessary, and they're going to have to be adjacent to the conversation we prioritize around church and Jesus. Therapy is going to have to be right next to Jesus.
Yeah, I agree. And as somebody who still actively goes through therapy, yeah, that's one of the best decisions I ever made. And there's nothing feminine about it. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be able to maintain my masculine household and all this other shit if I didn't go to therapy. I'd be too much of a wreck. You know what I mean? I wouldn't
So
be
can
able
you
to
talk to us a little bit about like how therapy has contributed to your emotional well-being and mental well-being?
Yeah, man. I started going to therapy, I think in 2014, right before I got out the military, like early. And but for the longest, like I didn't take it seriously. And I stopped going when I got out the military, but once I started like having a hard time like transitioning to civilian life, because like when we're getting out, you take terminal leave, and then what we're trying to do is we're trying to go straight into the shits. We don't even decompress. Like one of the worst decisions I ever made, Conscious, was I did not give myself time to decompress. I went straight from active duty military to August 2017, Cleveland State University full time, using my GI Bill. No time to decompress. Right? That was one of the worst decisions I ever did, because I ended up piling on too much of my plate and just broke down. But then at the same time, I'm looking at therapy going, well, I don't have time to talk about my feelings. Right. But eventually I just had to stick it through, because the longer I tried to solve everything by myself, Conscious, the more disconnected I was becoming to my wife and my two children, who I already had a hard time bonding as it is because of the deployments.
Yeah.
Right. Like, thankfully, I was able to see the birth of my daughters, but a lot of the young age and the toddlers, man, I was in the Middle East. So a lot of that bonding factor, I didn't even have a chance. And so now I decided, again, the worst decision of my life, man, like I'm transitioning my whole family out. I'm trying to go in, but I'm doing this because, yo, I can't stop. Right, Conscious? Yo, I got to keep my feet moving. You can't take a break. You know what I mean? You got to keep a roof over the family's head. And and a lot of the times it's like when you're dealing with so much shit, it's not even that you don't want to talk to anybody. It's that it's like sometimes feel like talking to somebody will slow you down. But once I actually dedicated myself to the therapy and took the meds and everything like that, it actually saved me so much time, and I'm actually operating like more efficiently. Like I'm actually able to, like, I guess, understand triggers, understand situations that, you know, maybe are relatable to the military, but really not. Like, and then just that exposure of just getting out there and following through with like the homework assignments. And the fact that it's a lot, here's the thing related to this conversation. I know I'm all over the place, but the thing about that is, I say this all the time, I had a support system. My wife and my daughters, they were there. They were supportive in everything. So unfortunately, it sucks because I don't know what it's like to be isolated and not have people like constantly trying to like yank you out of it. And there's too many, and there's a growing amount of men who do not have that privilege, who do not have that luxury, right? And unfortunately, therapy still keeps getting like minimized. And guys, if for nothing else, just to get it off your chest to a stranger, please, for the love of God, at least give it a shot. I'm telling you, a lot of y'all would be pleasantly surprised. Like, I encourage.
shout out to the Manosphere for attempting to take that advice to the extreme. Because a lot of those sectors are birthed out of niggas trying to tell somebody how angry and mad they is.
Mhm.
Nice, and thank you for sharing that. Wow. So, in returning back to these statistics, the article from Brookings.Education goes on to say that in their piece on the challenges facing Black men, Richard Reeves, Sarah, whatever this last name is, and Ember Smith explained that life expectancy is lowest for Black men compared to other groups, both at birth and at age 65. For white men, they write life expectancy at birth is about 6 years lower than at age 65. But for Black men, that gap is over 9 years, showing that Black men are more likely to die prematurely. This and many other facts that cite in their piece on the challenges facing Black men lead Reeves and his compadres to call for a new deal for Black men. In their new essay, Andre Perry and Carl Romer explore approaching student debt cancellation by wealth, not by income, as tuition costs have risen far more than wages and inflation, they observe. So too have increased amounts of borrowing and student debt. The problem is especially pertinent for Black households, they note, for whom a lack of generational wealth risk making student debt a long-term financial burden. The wealth disparity between Black and non-Black people means that Black households are not building as much wealth that can help pay off student loans. Perry and Roma argue that because student debt disproportionately harms the wealth poor and the Black wealth poor in particular, student debt cancellation could be a powerful tool in dismantling institutional discrimination and shrinking racial wealth disparities if implemented correctly. America has a wage problem, writes Siphon Liu and Joseph Parla in a new essay. The Carisha-19 pandemic brought the low-wage crisis to new heights as unemployed and underemployed low-wage workers, particularly women and people of color, face severe economic insecurity, whereas 44% of all U.S. families before the pandemic did not earn enough income to meet all of their living expenses. The chart demonstrates that households headed by women, Black and Latino or Hispanic individuals, and those with less than an associate's degree are even more likely to be struggling than most. You can read their essay to learn more about these data and solutions for local and regional policymakers to create inclusive economic recovery strategies with families sustaining wages. Any thoughts about that?
I think student loans is like, for me, a universal principle. Everybody needs their student loan debt wiped out. So as far as it having, I guess, disproportionate benefits to Black men specifically, I actually don't really see that. That would help Black women astronomically who are actually going to college and graduating. For Black men, we need Black men to understand the quality of education, the type of education, not just going to school or doing a semester or two and then bouncing. Emphasis on trade, emphasis on more going to community college route. But unfortunately, I don't even know what to say, because that's universal conscious. That's things we need to be telling everybody. You know what I mean? What do you think?
I think the whole damn system needs to be overhauled. I mean, I honestly just the way I look at America from the bottom up, the way I look at the system from a minority lens is it reminds me of bubblegum in the hair, and the only remedy is to actually cut out the hair, because there's just really no way to untangle I mean, I don't know. This is a weird system. It puts you in the social crisis that you're in by creating things like race, creating things like a patriarchy, creating things like a classism system, creating things like a caste system, creating a gender system, and then when there's a little evolution in thought and we kind of like come to regarding, you know, the sins we've committed against humanity, at best the remedy is let's just kind of act like nothing has happened and definitely not do anything to repair or leverage the communities that suffered at the hands of the inventions of all of this bullshit, aka why reparations has not happened. You cannot set a body free and not include what the mind also needs in order to truly experience that freedom. This is why you can have prisoners who statistically like are repeat offenders, especially after their first offense. They're bound to end up in the criminal justice system just shy of a year or 2 or 3 of
because now they got a criminal record and no one will hire them.
Yeah, exactly, like the system. And not only do they have a criminal record, and not only do you have like a system that like crashes you back into the same fucking wall that drove you into this predicament to begin with, but on top of that, you have the interpersonal trauma and you have these people going back into a struggle that is now compounded, to your point, because there also now are the complicated issues of having a criminal arrest record, etc. But ultimately, these people are back in the same environment that made them sick. And not only is that sickness not really prioritized while they are put away, but they come out with the sickness that came from their environmental circumstances and predicaments, and they're going back in to an environment that makes them susceptible to sickness. Like, it's just the whole shit is bizarre. It's the whole shit is bizarre. And I know that like wealthy people don't think that because they don't have any incentive to think that. I mean, they exist they exist from an observer's perspective, not a participant. But from this side of the fence, this is a very bizarre simulation to navigate.
I mean, we're 4%. America is 4% of the world's population, yet we account for just about 25% of the world's prison population. We literally have more prisoners than Russia and China combined. It's a freaking joke. And a lot of these wealthier, and let me tell you, it's not a Western thing. This is America specific thing. Because in those Western countries, especially the Nordic ones, you know what they're recidivism, because that's what we're talking about, recidivism rate. Here in America, it's like 50%. In those other countries, it's like 15. It's stupidly low because they actually try to reform. Obviously, there's certain people that can't be reformed. We get that. But Conscious, we know people who, I don't know, was selling drugs or robbed a store or something. Yeah, those people got a good chance, a good likely shot of being reformed. Right? And so it's like, okay, so we actually have systems in place now that we could look at and go, oh, well, this shit works. But nah, we don't want to do it over here. I mean, think about it. This is the only country where you can legitimately be a corporation or just a private investor and build your own goddamn prison and make money. That shit's pathetic just saying out loud.
which provides
land of the free,
which provides the motivation to sustain racism and racial disparity, because there's economic leverage and a benefit to doing so. Just like there's a equity on sexism, there's an equity on racism, there's an equity on classism. You need a bottom. You need a bottom. Well, you don't need a bottom, but the attitude is the necessity of the bottom, because they've learned how to make money off the bottom. And as a result of the bottom, what I was want to go back to too, because we are kind of all over the place, but this is good stuff. This friend recession piece that PBS had covered also spoke about the guy Quincy spoke about like what he believes is also contributing to men's loneliness, and this friend recession is technology, which is something that I have slammed for years, and that I'm still slamming. And it's interesting that he also made that observation. What do you think about the way that like technology and social media is actually contributing to anti-socialness?
Man, it's crazy because I cannot help but go, wasn't it men who created all this shit to begin with?
Go figure.
Right? It's almost like the all these tech guys who created AI and then lost their fucking jobs because, hey, bro, you're no longer useful. Congratulations. I can't help but, it sucks, but I can't help but laugh at it, Conscious, because it's like, damn, like we constantly find new and improved ways to fuck ourselves over. And I'm not saying technology and all that game, all the gains and progress is a bad thing, but the way in which we engage and are motivated to use the technology, good Lord, man. And then on top of that, we use all this new tech, all this scientific breakdown for the main purpose of finding new ways to kill each other. That's the most pathetic part about it. Our most advanced shit is used for pure destruction purposes only. Our most advanced technology that we got is only used for the purpose of destroying. Fucking sucks.
I'm pulling up something here. Make sure you guys are thumbing up the video.
Yo, Conscious, like straight up, this I'm sorry, I'm starting to get in my feelings. I ain't gonna lie. Like it pisses me off because when I look at this shit, I'm like, we always talk about American values and fucking tradition, and then literally you wipe out the Rust Belt state, the Rust Belt states, the industrial North, simply because you was making profit, Conscious. You just wasn't making as much as you could. You get what I mean? Like it's like, yeah, you was making, and I'm just throwing like a random number, but just you was making 500,000, Conscious, but you know you could have been making 750 if you did it this way. You just gotta fire a few of these assholes and you're good. Right? And so what sucks is that in our current system, even with me trying to be positive, I can't help but be negative because we inherently live in a society where we keep all the information close to our chest and we use it as a potential weapon against each other. So we, in a way, don't want to see each other do well. You know what I mean? Like that competition has now infected our everyday social life. That's not just in the labor market anymore. That shit is never turned off, Conscious.
I think it's a twofold issue. I think capitalism creates a lot of insidious disparities mentally and spiritually, etc. Because a lot of people want to work toward the financial incentive and the fame, the fortune, etc. Not only because there's a personal benefit to doing so, but there's also an inner emptiness that we are attempting to remedy by gaining these things: wealth, influence, fame, because they have social equity on them. So you have lonely, broke people working toward not being broke, but also working toward curing up the meaninglessness in their lives. And because people who obtain these breakthroughs and these liberations and these financial incentives and fame and fortunes then become idols, that's then also what's sought after, is that idolization and that sense of significance. But that sense of significance can't be there, Tyrus, if everybody is an idol, if everybody is important. So then you keep the information close to your chest as a result, as a way to preserve this equity that you're using to fill these emotional voids in yourself, because you want to be the token successor in the family or amongst the friendship group or amongst the community. You want to also know what it feels like to have power, because when you didn't have it, you saw how people were treated who had it. You saw the things they could accomplish in the lives of other people. You saw the level of obedience and submissiveness and the immunity, the things you could also get away with, the way you could be perceived and affirmed as somebody who made it. But if everybody makes it, now nobody's no longer special. But because everybody's also dealing with the I'm not special issue, we're just going to find some other insidious way to accomplish this void external, in an external way to us, or in an external fashion, because man also largely works from the outside in rather than the inside out. And I just think it's funny, once again, how this becomes a bubblegum in the hair matrix. And now I understand why so many revolutionary people pulled out the sword in order to remedy the issue. Was like, purge the land, sink the ship, exterminate, blow it to smithereens. Because it's one thing to have an internal issue that we can do something about, right? Like, if I am a poor, handicapped, or if I'm a poor minority person with deep trauma in my life because of the way in which I was raised, the interpersonal violence I witnessed between my parents, the prostitution, the violence I witnessed in my community, and this was what was cultivated to me, and I wasn't afforded certain opportunities, and I wasn't educated because I had to start helping my single mother at 14, and I had to drop out of high school and start selling drugs in order to provide for my siblings, etc. Da, 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 da. There are an aspect of my life and the choices I made that came from the way I was informed, and because of the things that informed me, I made decisions from that stimuli. I can correct that. I can get in control of that. And But the problem here too is that when as I'm correcting that, I'm still living in a system that has issues against me beyond my control, because I don't control racism. I don't control homophobia. I don't control anti-blackness. I don't control the discrimination in housing. I don't, or the discrimination in job opportunity, in the hiring process. I don't control the issues as it relates to getting into a quality university, etc. That there's also a big chunk of my reality that I don't get to be behind the wheel of, that I am subjected to instead, regardless of the fair share of accountability that I take for myself. But it's better to take the responsibility, right, that you can, over the parts of your life that you do directly contribute to and can contribute to by way of overcoming your interpersonal issues. But then there's all this other shit that also brings about its own fair share of struggle. And so when I've been looking at a lot of the conversations over the past 2 years as it relates to Black and brown issues around police brutality and the criminal justice system and all these things, and this conversation about how we can't all come together, etc., or a lot of Black people falling into a pessimism now, is also something that I understand, because it's battle fatigue. When you've been fighting for generations, like our ancestors have been nothing but fighting for a better version of this matrix since we've been here. There's been nothing but a fight since the creation of America, since the creation of the idea of America. Those ancestors and that fight is also living through us in our own cellular makeup. So you have Black people who feel discouraged because they're looking at their anecdotal experience coupled with the plethora of other bullshit that exists beyond them. You got people resting in their trauma. You feel, and to a large degree, you are pitted between a rock and a hard place. The hard place is what your lived experience, how that has injured you, coupled with the rock, which is the system. And I'm sick of us just being in this predicament. I know that the only way out of it is to continue to fight, continue to grow, continue to evolve, continue to try, continue to make the strides, because obviously we also
fucking exhausting.
Yeah, because we also can't afford to lay down either. But
we don't get the luxury of stopping, bro.
Yeah, you don't have the luxury of stopping, but you're also just tired. You're just tired. You're just fucking tired. And there's nothing in this system, because racism continues to be something that political parties want to narrate as self-imagined and a thing of the past. It's not leaving room for that fatigue that's taken place as a result of surviving the reality of these things that certain powers and principalities in this system are trying to act like is a figment of minorities' imagination. So minorities don't have a recess to take. And when they do take recess, we see what that looks like. It looked like the ghettos of America. It looks like the Black on Black crimes always spoken about. It looks like the DV rates between Black women and Black men. It looks like all of the a crime perpetuated. It looks like the high school dropout rates. It looks like the life expectancy rates. It looks like all of this side effects, the side effects, the side effects. These are the side effects. So I get, I empathize, I understand, I am worried for us because I really don't know what this is really going to look like. I really don't. I don't know really what to expect. I don't know what's really going to happen. I know for me what I'm going to do. I don't know what we are going to look like day to day, year to year, moving through this molasses. I don't know how many of us are going to be still a part of the fight forward a year from now, or 10 years from now, or 5 years from now, or 4 years from now. I don't know what the system is also going to look like based upon what we're pushing back. I just fucking, you know, like we still seeing the coonery and the buffoonery just on a macro level when it comes to, you know, Taraji speaking out about an economic issue, and then you having the fucking shoe shiners of the community like Vivica A. Fox and Fantasia like, I ain't got no problems. I mean, I ain't got no problems. Those ain't my problems. And I'm just like, oh my God, are we still literally like are we still ignoring systemic issues based upon anecdotal reality? Like, well, I ain't never experienced police brutality before. It just isn't a thing. I ain't never experienced racism. So I ain't never. It's just like, are y'all fucking okay? Are y'all fucking okay? Like, are y'all okay? Oh my fucking God. We can't even be clear about the line between individuality and collective systematic issues. Like we can't even understand that at a hooked on phonics level. Like
well, think about it. There's a relationship there, right? There's this toe the line hyper masculinity you have to freaking practice, or what they call you gay or you feminine or whatever like that. Just like there's this racial or the toe the racial line you gotta walk, and the moment you even move your foot, well, what happens? You're going against the collective, right? And so it's a very complex dance people gotta walk. I mean, we talk about everybody getting their bag. Unfortunately, for Black people specifically, because we have no power with the system, we have to get the bag, and the only way to maintain the bag is to what? Move to the burbs or move to the rural area, right? But then you get told that you're leaving your community behind, knowing that if you stay in the community, let's be clear, we know what it's like. The property values are low, the quality of education is low. You might get or probably will get robbed when we're talking about these sort of environments. And what sucks, Conscious, is that even just saying that out loud, I get to that defensive mode that you was talking about a few minutes ago. That like when you're trying to tell people about like a real problem or a real issue that is solvable, you put them in the defensive posture because now they got to defend their honor. Now they can't even hear what you're saying because no, I'm not like that. You get what I mean? Like they're so caught up with the accusation that they're not, I guess, hearing or even trying to hear, you know, a better path forward. But it's crazy because you see that's not actually an issue with Black women. That's what's so perplexing to me, is that Black women, while statistically amongst women are still, you know, there's still a lot to gain. Black women are, for the most part, doing their thing in this country. But what I've seen is that Black women, like most women do, they actually take the information and they apply it. And I'm seeing women and Black women specifically in this conversation adapt and evolve. And so while we talk about in the men's spaces a lot about these welfare queens, I always tell them, I'm like, well, here's a program that is there to be used and they're using it. Isn't that what intelligence is? Taking opportunities granted to you and applying it to make your life better for the future. I mean, that's just fucking
You
like
know, like
sense, right?
what's so funny about that, Tyrus? Like, what's so funny about men being upset at the welfare system? The reason why they're so triggered by it is because men look at welfare as a reparation for women that they don't get to participate in because they feel equally deserving of that break. Because they consider it a break. They consider welfare a break.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Conscious. I just gotta be real. With those programs anyway, I definitely trust women to make the better decision than us will, than we will, because I see women use those programs and successfully climb the fucking ladder, or at least make sure their kids get the opportunity. Ben Carson's mother did exactly that. And whatever the politics people want to say, at the end of the day, this man is a decorated neurosurgeon whose mom used public assistance to make sure that kid had a roof over his head to help become what he is today. Like, that's just common sense, right? But we got this, like, especially a male ego thing, but especially amongst Black men, like, we always got to look down at these situations that can easily at least assist us along, because the reality is, I think if some of us got some of those things, we wouldn't use it for its intended purpose. And so we automatically project that on Black women or women as a whole.
Dion Griffin posed an interesting question. She says, plot twist, how do we stop isolation if we're built to actually engage each other for change? On one hand, we can't change shit without each other. But on the other hand, we have a growing divestment movement. People are divesting emotionally from the community, divesting mentally from one another. People are becoming more individually identified and not collectively identifiable. How do we stop isolation? I pulled up an article that kind of talks a little bit about this when we were talking about social media. According to McLeanHospital.org, the social media dilemma, social media and your mental health. The social media platform Instagram made headlines last year for suppressing likes in an effort to curb the comparisons and hurt feelings associated with attaching popularity to sharing content. But do these efforts combat mental health issues, or are they simply applying a band-aid to a wound? In a small step in the right direction, says Jacqueline Spurring, PhD, a psychologist at McLean Hospital who works with youth who experience anxiety disorders, about Instagram's recent restriction. Quote, even if you remove the likes, there continue to be opportunities for comparisons and feedback. People can compare themselves to others and people can still post comments. Social media has a reinforcing nature. Using it activates the brain's reward center by releasing dopamine, a feel-good chemical linked to pleasurable activities such as sex, food, and social interaction. The platforms are designed to be addictive and are associated with anxiety, depression, and even physical ailments. According to the Pew Research Center, 69% of adults and 81% of teens in the U.S. use social media. That's damn near the entire country. This puts a large amount of the population at an increased risk of feeling anxious, depressed, or ill over their social media use. But what makes users come back for more, even when it literally makes them sick? Quote, when the outcome is unpredictable, the behavior is more likely to repeat. Think of a slot machine. If gamers playing knew they were never going to get money by playing the game, then they never would play, Sperling says. Wow, that's actually a great metaphor. The idea of potential future reward keeps the machines in use. The same goes for social. Wow, that is such a great illustration. Wow. The idea of a potential future reward keeps the machines in use. The same goes for social media sites. One does not know how many likes a picture will get, who will like the picture, and when the picture will receive likes. The unknown outcome and the possibility of a desired outcome can keep users engaged with the sites. Wow. And look at how we also think a lot about the way we are, like as if who we are is in a vacuum. There's even a chemical, there's even a chemical process in relationship between our brains and how it interacts, our bodies and how it engages and interacts with community, social media, this dopamine hit that essentially we're chasing after, just like a crackhead after crack, a weed head after weed, alcoholic after liquor.
Yeah.
And this reward-based kind of biologically engineered system where we look to be affirmed, we look for confirmation, we look for affirmation as a communal species in one another, is like literally what social media is using as its like addictive point. This is very fascinating to me. But with half of the country engaging in social media, and with depression, anxiety, and even physical ailments being the result of this. Remember, me and you, Tyrus, was just talking a few days ago about the correlation between the mass ootings quantifying themselves in the country and the correlation between social media. And I was saying then, I know there is there has to be a correlation, because to your point earlier, you said, look, there was a time where you could leave your rifle on the back of the truck. We wasn't doing the most in schools. Look at all the things that Black and brown people were going through during integration. If there was any reason to start blowing shit up, it would have been the onslaught of integrating with a group of people that had no problem visually, physically showing us resistance, and that we were unwanted, unloved, and unwelcomed. And yet this was not the case. But ironically, there is something very unique that has been just dumped and downloaded, and that has been imposed upon our society, and that has been this new boo called social media. And I believe we are just in the shallow stages of beginning to understand just the chaos and drama that we have inadvertently, or maybe by the powers that be, intentionally have unearthed and unleashed. Because if you ask me, social media and AI is literally the contemporary and modern forbidden fruit that has been bitten. And I think we are just in the amateur stages of power and awareness and a potential that is beyond our understanding. And I do think it will contribute to more harm than good, because as you said, nobody can doubt the positive impact social media has been able to have on one hand, but that's also costing us, according to all of the statistics, it's also costing the shit out of our humanity.
Yeah, and nobody can doubt that either. This is two sides to the coin here. You know what I mean? Nobody could doubt that either. I feel conscious, like I feel, and I told you this before, that I think overall social media or global communication is going to be overall a net positive. I think, again, this is hindsight 2020, but I guess if you looked at, you know, societies or civilizations that were able to take the next step and do, like, you know, intergalactic or intragalactic travel and things like that, part of the deal would be able to communicate at a global level, right? And so we have a lot of freaking information that, yes, has, like you said, has been dumped on us, with, you know, the faucet's still on full blast. And I honestly, as a human being conscious, I'd rather it be like that than the other way, where we get a trickle. No, let's see if we're capable. So I think we're capable as a society of getting through it. Now, here's the part, as a Black and Latino man, that this has really been social media and global communication been so far a net negative. We were already dealing with identity crisis and not automatically knowing what tribes we belong to from, you know, the variety of countries in West and Central Africa. We were already dealing with a crisis of faith. Let's be clear, we all understand the kind of different ideology and thinking between going the Malcolm X route and the MLK route, right? We understand, you know, there's that Pan-Africanism element, and then you see the Black Israelites. You have all these sectors that breed from the fact that we're constantly looking for an identity, some sort of, again, like you said, that void, that vacuum. Especially we as men, it's what I call our totem pole conscious. Like, we need that totem pole, that purpose to identify who we are. And Black men were already having a hard time struggling with that, and then social media happened. And now, let's be clear, as factual as trinkets of information is, and all the studies and everything, if you were already lost, how do you put all of this shit together?
Yeah, exactly.
You were already barely piecing it through,
Yeah.
and then this tidal wave of information wiped all of your progress away.
Yeah. Gosh, I never even thought about it from that vantage point of how so many people prior to the invention of social media did all of this interpersonal work, only for a lot of these people absolutely to have had their progress ripped away by this new stimuli that completely exacerbated the variables in us as human beings that already naturally drive us to be pygmalious, because once again, we are a communal species. So almost by biological engineering, we are driven to be social creatures, but social media is literally amplifying that biological factor. And this is where that dopamine component is coming into play, that is aiding us in staying committed to this need to feel special, to feel affirmed, to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel approved of, all things that we would naturally be seeking out anyway, but once again is compounded because of the invention of social media. And I just can't imagine, like, because as soon as you said that, Tyrus, I immediately thought about all of the women and men in this country who suffer from body dysmorphia, who in the old world, you know, did their work to get their body dysmorphia under control, to get their bulimia, their anorexia under control, who then were hit with this extreme wave of social media and filters and
mostly in silence, right? Before all that, mostly in silence, they was doing all that work.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh my goodness. Wow. Wow. Fucking wow.
Yeah.
Wow. This is wild. This is beyond. I cannot imagine what it is like for you to do the work to get yourself to be convinced that you're all right, that you're okay as you are, that there's no need to change, only for the world to literally encourage the complete opposite by giving you and everybody else the option to alter yourself digitally, which also has contributed to a influx in the cosmetic surgery. See, we can see the relationship.
Yeah.
Social media and self-editing applications of filters have created unrealistic beauty standards, body types that people are literally now attempting to go and make a reality on the medical table. So now the cosmetic industry is booming in the billions because people know what they believe their idealistic self can look like thanks to the inventions of these filters, and are trying to go and achieve that unrealism. And imagine if people with no body dysmorphia issue are falling victim to this and are being gravitationally suctioned into this issue, into this body dysmorphia issue. Could you imagine the people who already have body dysmorphia being completely vulnerable and susceptible to the chaos that something like this creates? If people
unfortunately, I'm sorry, but unfortunately, dark-skinned women deal with that a lot.
If people who didn't even have these issues prior are not surviving under the societal pressure to assimilate this way, how in the fuck do you do that as somebody who already is susceptible to issues with your body and your anatomy and your autonomy? Go ahead, Tyrus. This is
I'm really sorry for interrupting. Like I've heard my cousins talk about that. Most of my cousins are either Black or Puerto Rican, and especially my Black cousins, they would always say, like, bring up like colorism, and I would only hear about colorism from like Black women, you know what I mean? And so my cousins would always bring that up, even when we were like younger and everything, about like, all the light-skinned girls or the light-skinned boys. And then I remember a conversation when a few years ago when we were older about how much worse it got, because my cousins are dark-skinned women, because with the rise of social media, even though maybe it was known, now you realize, Conscious, in India and China, they got a whole booming industry over lightening your skin. Right? The lighter you are, what I think in India is the caste system or whatever it is they call it. And in China too, it's even funny. Vice News did a whole segment on that, where they literally just hire white people because it gives credibility to whatever product they're marketing in China, right? And so you got that, and then of course that inherently, because that's culture based, that's media and entertainment, all of those fresh new products and perspectives and cultural ways of lightening your skin comes through.
Yep.
And now only for dark-skinned women who have been having to navigate that, now being like, well, shit, I can't use none of this shit. Right? And so all that was another gap, or another thing that widened the gap. Like I just, like, at the outside looking in, I can't even imagine what dealing with that is, because you're, especially as a dark-skinned woman, you are, again, unfairly at the bottom of the total pole, through no other reason than existence, and then this shit happens.
Which is why I don't understand why we keep electing and voting some of the most privileged people into positions of power when all these tables at the top need to have people at the bottom also pulled up to them. You cannot properly you can't effectively create a healthy algorithm for any society without the information, the impact, and the data from the people who are the most impacted by those algorithms. And the fact that we largely participate in a system without the voices of the poor, the disenfranchised, and then yet think we're going to have a healthy society is wild, and exactly why we haven't been able to achieve a working system that is decent for all people. And you know, I'm at this point in my life personally where I'm just willing to call certain things poison, period. And even and right now, like, social media is a poison. And I even, as a content creator, I even have to take like my fair share of breaks because my mental health was like in a dark place like the last 3 weeks. And literally it was because of social media. Social media has a very unnatural impact on the psyche, and it makes us overly aware, and it makes us hypersensitive. And trying to survive everything just with the invention of social media alone is just very new and weird to me, such as like let's say that like in the normal world, if you're in need or trying to get in contact with a loved one, and you couldn't reach them at the moment, your brain could easily, like, it was easier to rationalize why they were not available and to keep your expectations that they more than likely will get back to you at the earliest convenience. But you can call somebody now, leave them a voicemail, shoot them a text, and you see them all up and down social media all day. And they've yet to respond to that call, to that voicemail, to that text. And now the sabotaging part of your brain can go into hyper mode and create a narrative based upon what you're seeing and what you're witnessing, which can also lead to the breakdown of those friendships or those family ships, or because they create perceptions. And I do think we have too much insight into each other's lives, and I'm not shocked that there's so much loneliness and so much unhappiness that people are having in their marriages, in their family groups, in their friendship groups. And so many people, despite being more connected, you know, than ever now, are only connected virtually, but are not truly connected sentiently and psychically and in a substantive way. This connection is literally only skin deep as it relates to social media. And what do you tell yourself when you can see people ignoring you now? You can see the people closest to you, like what's occupying their time, what they're prioritizing over you. Like, I don't know how we're supposed to navigate this.
I don't have an answer for you either. I think that answer might come organically. I think as far as social media goes, as far as the infrastructure, I really do think there's no reason for the activity feed to be public, like, at all. Like, I shouldn't be able to go to somebody's page and see what they've been scrolling through. Like, that's for me, that feels like an invasion of privacy. and maybe just turning that feature off by itself. I wonder what the long-term effects, positive or negative, could do for how we navigate social media moving forward. You know what I mean? I just never understood why somebody's activity feed should be public like that. I don't know. That's just me though.
Oh, I was on mute. I think it's very public on Twitter, right?
It's public everywhere, right? Or just about.
Oh, I don't know. I've never actually like looked through anybody's. I've never used. I mean, if that's an option, I've never used it. I can't even deal with the damn like surface shit that I see. Yet alone actually go into all the. I don't even want half the fucking information I have in my fucking head. About what's already known, on the surface of all this shit. And that's why even a lot of times I don't even scroll. Like I just upload and get and haul ass. I don't like I'll just make my post and go. I don't even like I have to, because I am empathic and I am somebody who like I come from a big family. I come from an era that was without social media. I'm very much so still into very like real blood driven relationships and kind of dealing in this era where there's a lot of like shallow interaction available and it's very digitalized and it's like cyborg in nature. It's just weird and it's uncomfortable and it's honestly kind of annoying and frustrating, and I just have to like really control my ratio when it comes to social media. I'm willing at this point right now, based upon the way that we use social media and the damage that it's costing, despite the good things that comes out of it right now. I'm going to classify social media and AI as forbidden fruit and as poison. And I encourage people to like, because what's ironic is that there's data around how all of these statistics start to fall away for people who are disconnected from social media, people who have deactivated their Facebooks, deactivated their Instagrams, who have terminated these apps, etc., are happier. They're feeling happier. They feel healthier. There's like already immediate notable positives to disengaging from this shit. And I guess as a remedy to the way we can remedy through this, I think that first and foremost, I need all Earthlings to realize social media is a choice. You actually don't have to use it. And I know that it's being marketed toward us as a necessity and something that needs to be integrated into our everyday lives because that's quote unquote where the world is. That's where everybody is. But it still is a choice and you don't have to accept that. And the minute that you begin to feel your mental health decline, it's important for you to figure out what your relationship actually needs to be with something like this. It does have a negative effect. You aren't crazy or insecure or hypersensitive or just weak because you're having a difficult time enjoying social media or participating in it. There literally is something wrong in the formula. And the research around us is illustrating that. So you're not crazy and you're not out of your fucking mind, and don't allow social media to make you question yourself and your wellness, because there is a place for that conversation, but social media is also the bad guy too. It also is the abusive boyfriend and girlfriend as well. So there is that. Thirdly, I would suggest at this point, I'm going to say make social media illegal in your household if you have young people. I'm raising nieces and nephews, so they're not like largely mine solely, but I'm co-parenting. But if I had my own children, I'm sorry, they would not be able to access. So they'll be able to use the internet, but they would not be able to access social media until they were 18. I feel like social media requires just as much of a damn license to experience just as much as an automobile requires a license to drive, because that's just how incredibly dangerous social media can be, just not only from a mental and an emotional and a spiritual standpoint, but also the physical danger that young people can end up in with thinking they're talking to other teenagers and they're talking to a grown-ass man or woman who is trying to abduct them and to meet them at school and, you know, to never have them be seen again by their families. The online scamming that's happening, the extortion and blackmail that's happening, where you have, I remember watching the special on Dr. Phil where these kids were being like extorted by people they thought were their peers who they met, you know, through some online app, and they were, you know, sexting and trading nudes, only to find out that it was a scam artist who was extracting these images for them and then extorting them in return. Like, if you don't give me $1, I'm going to upload your nudes to, you know, Facebook, or I'm going to email all of your like, you know, and
like some of the women that were victims of like the revenge porn situations and things like that, uploaded on social media.
Yeah. And the guys, like, there have been cases of like young men who took their lives as a result of being extorted. Yeah. So this is something that's not, you know, it's both genders. And it's just vile. You know, it's also the scamming, like the way that these scammers can extract your information just based upon like an email they send you, and they can hack your computer. They can look at you through your webcam on your phone, on your tablet, on your laptop. You can be secretly surveyed by the devices in your own home, unbeknownst to you. Hackers can hack your surveillance home, your home surveillance. I mean, they can extract your personal information, your banking information. So there's just so much shit going on. Like, honestly, I don't give a damn. My children would be mad at me all the fuck they want to. But they would not be able to have social media. They would not be able to have no fucking Instagram, no fucking Facebook. They wouldn't be able to look at it. No, nothing. They could do their homework on the internet, utilize Google for research purposes. You know, they could play games and shit, but in terms of social media, no. I can barely do social media. Like, the shit that it does to me as a grown ass, evolved, and arguably lucid individual who's very disciplined, I even have to I'm at war with these forces on social media. There's no fucking way in hell that I could think that people less evolved and more impressionable, who have less disciplines in their arsenal, could survive what we're seeing young people not survive. You know, I think this article says what, Tarus, that 81% of teenagers are social media users. That's damn near every teenager. That's damn near every teenager in the country.
Yeah, that's why. That's why I can't take I let my daughters have social media, because in this world, in this current society, I'd be putting them at a disadvantage. Thankfully, you know, I was stationed in Germany for 5 years, and I got to see how they kind of raised the kids. And guess what, man? They had nudity on TV. They're not editing out cuss words and music on the radio. And yet their violence rate is a joke compared to our country. And it really makes sense. And this also helped because of my dad too. My dad always taught me, even with music and movies growing up, hey man, this is just entertainment. Do not take this seriously.
Yeah.
Right. And if he even caught me starting to somewhat remotely behave like some of them people on TV or in the music, he'd snatch that shit up. You know what I mean? And I took the same route with my daughters, you know what I mean? And by the way, I'm an active parent because every social media account they got, I got that same app and I'm following them shits. And yes, people, I know about they little things where they try to log on to different people's account and make different profiles. I done deactivated their phone uh, for a whole 6 months because of that shit. And they've never done it again. Because when they know that your parents are watching, you know, actively engage with the social media shit, for the most part, they use it for what it's supposed to be used for. Fun. To your point, Conscious, there's not enough parents and people teaching their children that way. Right? They're not teaching their children to use this as entertainment fun. This is how I like my Instagram, Conscious. You see it when I'm posting my rides. You know what I mean? Like family stuff, like, you know, just normal shit. I'm not posting anything looking to get, you know, I guess engagement from a broader audience. And that's the same way my daughters do it. But I have to understand my daughters are teenagers. They 15 and 13. Yeah, they want to do the little TikTok challenges and things like that. And guess what? 81%, aka 100% of all their friends are doing that. You know what I mean? So it's now become weirdly enough that, you know, without that sort of social media activity, at least in a healthy way, you know, with things like group chats, like I'm learning that group chats are a thing. Like if you're not in certain group chats or whatever, you considered a loser. Like that shit's crazy, but that's a fucking thing. And, you know, just their entire social circle is something that actually you could easily navigate as long as you're engaged, not helicopter parent, but engaged with them. Like I tell my daughter's, Conscious, like especially your friends who got an iPhone, put it on FaceTime, because I understand we live in a digital society, but at least if you're still looking at your friends face to face, you still get that interaction, that direct eye contact. You know what I mean? Like you see the expressions and gestures and things
More
like that. Like
personable. Yeah.
yeah, they're more personable. Like take the opportunities to do that. Like I've showed them my email and showed them, hey, this is a spam. Don't ever open this because it's going to be a virus and things like that. And identify that kind of fraud and stuff. And again, as a parent, they know that that's not your fucking phone. I will go through your shit when I feel like it. You know what I mean? And there's still that.
Do you ever get anxiety before you look? Like, do you ever just be like, okay, I hope what the fuck I hope I'm about to see is normal shit. I don't want to see her busting it open. I don't want to see a dick going on. I don't want to see no sexting. I don't want to see no titties. I just hope what I'm about to fucking see is normal, age appropriate content in my teenagers. Fucking, I get so much anxiety checking my nieces and nephews stuff. I just feel, oh my God, please, I'm not ready, God, please let all this parenting completely have paid off based on let what I'm about to see make sense, because I can't.
I'm knocking on wood, but so far, Conscious, the worst I've had to deal with is some very choice profanity words and you know certain rap lyrics and shit.
Have you thought about?
You know what? I could deal with that. No bullying, no nothing like that. So I could deal with it.
Now, since you have chosen to be a parent who's going to look, have you also decided, okay, if I find things in there that I totally do not agree with, what happens after that? Like, do you have anything in place?
Yeah, so it's crazy. The most powerful tool I got is that I forgot that the time thing, the parental control on the on the family sharing on Apple, because they hate it, because sometimes Conscious, especially when they got their phones early, I would just cut their fucking phones off at random times just to let them know I could do it.
Yeah.
Just on some arch villain shit. You know what I mean? Just to let them know, hey, dad's watching. And I know that might sound crazy, but yeah, kids need that. They need to know, hey, dad's around the corner. If you get caught slipping,
you can't allow them to fall into a routine. They have to be on their toes, because that's what's gonna keep their nose clean. If they know that, okay, I don't know when that motherfucker gonna come around the mountain.
Yeah, so it's like, I tell them, I'm like, yo, I better not see no crazy ass photos.
Yeah.
And I know y'all be fucking, I know about that Snapchat shit. I know how it works. Don't let me hop on your fucking app and see some shit, though. You get what I mean? And I will stand there when they go through it. Now, if it's like, I know like the profanity is not, for me, in the big picture, is not a big deal, but it's like a standard. You know, I want them talking or speaking in public a certain way. You know what I mean? So it's like, man, you know, I'm going to take your phone. You ain't taking your phone to school for like a couple of days or something like that. Right now, if it's some choice photos, which knock on wood, I haven't ran into yet. Right. We're going to have a different discussion. We're going to talk about time limits. Like, hey, you know what? This phone's getting cut off at 9 o'clock. You could probably still watch TV and stuff like that, but you ain't texting anybody. That thing is now a glorified brick, or it's just an alarm clock until tomorrow. You know what I mean? Anything worse than that, which God, I don't even want to think about. Yeah, we're gonna have the phone deactivated. Now you need a serious timeout. It's just not enough to take your phone because you're not doing your chores. If you get to that level, now you can't have this. And I hope I never get to that level, because if I ever get to that level, Conscious, that's a direct reflection of my failure as a father, because that means I wasn't engaged enough. The message, whatever methods I was using, wasn't working. You get what I mean? Because we know kids are gonna fuck up, but there's levels to how they screw up. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's return back a little bit to this article, which I had to shimmy on over to social media and read a bit real quick. All right. The digital age of vulnerability. The earlier teens start using social media, the greater impact the platforms have on mental health. This is especially true for females. While teen males tend to express aggression physically, females do so relationally by excluding others and sharing hurtful comments. Social media increases the opportunity for such harmful interactions. Sperling offers the example of a 7th grader whose best friend chooses a new best friend and posts pictures of the pair at the movies or on a weekend trip. Quote, 20 years ago, the girl may have been excluded for her best friend's activities, but she may not have known about it unless she was told explicitly, Sperling says. In addition to providing young people with a window through which they can view missed experiences, social media puts a distorted lens on appearances and reality. Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat increase the likelihood of seeing unrealistic filtered photos at a time when teen bodies are changing. In the past, teens read magazines that contain altered photos of models. Now these images are one thumb scroll away at any given time. Apps that provide the user with airbrushing, teeth whitening, and more filters are easy to find and easier to use. It's not only celebrities who look perfect, it's everyone. When there's a filter applied to the digital world, it can be hard for teens to tell what's real and what isn't, which comes at a difficult time for them physically and emotionally. Quote, middle school already is challenging for students with all of their developmental changes. As they go through puberty, they're tasked with establishing their identity at a time when the frontal lobes in their brains are not fully developed and there is a lack of impulse control. All of this happens while their relationships with peers become more important, Sperling says. Quote, it's a very vulnerable population to have access to something where there is no stopgap before they post or press the send button. I think that's something of which to be mindful. Adults are vulnerable too. In recent years, plastic surgeons have seen an uptick in requests from patients who want to look like their filtered Snapchat and Instagram photos. A New York Times article that ran in June 2018 features a newlywed couple who nearly separated after their honeymoon. The reason: the wife spent more time on the trip planning and posting selfies than she spent with her actual damn husband. Sperling acknowledges social media platforms have positive aspects, such as their ability to allow people to stay in touch with family and friends around the world. She realizes the potential pitfalls of completely banning teens from sites that have become a part of life for their generation, not just as a way for them to stay on top of recent parties and conversations, but often as expected source of announcements and news. Still, she says, the platforms have opened, wow, Pandora's box. Now, that's been our language. As they continue to evolve more quickly than we can research their impact. I think we need to take a step back and look at the role technology is playing in our society as a whole in terms of people needing instant gratification, staying home and not interacting in the community by going to local stores or to the movie theater, she says. Even dating apps can decrease motivation for single adults to approach others in the community if they think they can just connect with them on an app first. In addition to limiting likes, as Instagram has done, Sperling suggests social platforms consider decreasing mass sharing altogether. They might function more as messaging services by highlighting one-on-one communications. Regardless of how likely social media giants are to change their ways, though, individuals can take control of their own behavior. Distract yourself from the distraction. People aren't usually motivated to change their social media use by simply hearing it's bad for them. It's better for individuals to see what their limits are. It's probably unrealistic for most social media users to quit completely. However, they can monitor their behavior to see how their use impacts them and how to act as a result. Michelle knows this all too well. When she was initially treated for anxiety, her therapist asked if she was active on social media, and she said yes. It turns out that a lot of my anxiety and imposter syndrome is made worse when I'm online. A person experiences imposter syndrome when feeling chronic self-doubt and a sense of being exposed as a fraud in terms of success and intellect. Whether it's another pretty vacation or someone's bouquet of flowers, my mind went from why not me to I don't deserve those things and I don't know why, and it made me feel awful. She and her therapist decided to set ground rules. Quote, if I was to continue using social media, I had to learn what would trigger my anxiety and how using different platforms made me feel, says Michelle. The result was her deleting Snapchat for good, and after 5 years, she still doesn't miss it. I was talking about that too. The people who walking away feel more empowered and healthier. She's still active on several other platforms, though. Sperling encourages people to conduct their own behavior experiments by rating their emotions on a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 being the most intensely one could experience an emotion before and after using social media sites at the same time each day for a week. If one notices that one feels less happy after using them, then one might consider changing how one uses social media sites, such as using them for less time and doing other activities that one enjoys instead. So what's interesting about this is that, like, Willow Green says, thank you. This is one of the best shows I've ever seen lately on any channel. You are welcome, Willow.
Yeah.
We do it all, honey. Y'all told y'all we do it all, man. You know, we can gag, we can roast, we can turn up on the celebrity gossip, and we can, have fun. And then, we also got to get into the thick of this shit. We got to get into to some practical shit, to some real life shit. But what's fascinating, Roos, about this is I've been contemplating lately unfollowing all of the people that I know personally on my social medias. I also have been, and I have already started muting their pages. So a lot of people that I'm connected to who I know personally on social media, I have customized like my settings, and I don't even like see them in my algorithm. So I would have to like manually go and look if I wanted to see them. And I've done that to avoid some of the pitfalls that I've, talk to you about. Like, it does feel god awful when you are in need of your friends or your family members and you're trying to get in contact with them for something that's important to you and they're not available, but you can see them interacting on social media. You can see them engaging in person with strangers in the comment section. You can see them making posts about stupid shit, but you know, and the catastrophe and perception that can create in your mind about them and about the strength of their relationship, it can really bring their relationship into confrontation because you question the worth and all of that. And so as a way for me to avoid, you know, that has been me controlling if I want to see what they're up to on social media. But and then I begin to weigh, and then I begin to weigh, you know, if the friendship or the family ship have weaknesses based upon if more information is divulged to social media than it is to, you know, me as somebody who's personal in their lives. And then from there, you know, I can decide if some conversations need to happen, you know, if I need to bring some things to, you know, their awareness, if there's some ground rules we need to establish, you know, when we are engaging each other, etc. But you know, it's a lot. It's a fucking lot to deal with. What are your thoughts?
And that's an interesting method. You got to keep me updated on how that how that works.
I already feel so much better.
Yeah,
like,
that's good.
I'm already so happy because it's easier for me to look at strangers because I'm not invested in them. So like seeing their shit is nothing. But you know, it has given me a sense of autonomy by not having a relationship to my loved ones' social media platforms. It also keeps me actually also like, instead of getting my fix when they come to mind by just going and you know, into their social medias, because I'm not trying to connect with them through social media, it motivates me to have to like actually send them a text or a call to actually check in, actually make contact, you know, not just go look, you know, at their thread on social media. So it keeps me active, it keeps me being direct, it keeps me engaging, and it keeps me interactive. And because of social media's existence, it's become even more important for me to actually prioritize that, because I realize that social media can accidentally strip a relationship of that substance and of that intimacy. So now I make sure, you know, to really focus upon my interpersonal relationships and to make sure that I'm actually really showing up and almost treating those relationships as if social media doesn't exist at all. When I actually get to know a person, I remove their social media out of my reality altogether. Like, it's not even a thing anymore. You know, like, you are now a real person to me, and I'm going to interact with you as if social media does not exist. So yes, I'm going to call. We're going to hang out. I need to see you. We need to vacay. We need to go pop some pussy at the club. We need to go get a drink. I'm going to treat it as if your social media don't exist. That's the only way I know how to maintain the integrity of their relationships, is by not allowing social media to drive the wheel of my relationship.
Yeah, I like that a lot. If we're nearby and we're friends, I should be able to hit you up through text. You should be able to hit me up through a phone call, through a text. We should be able to link up somewhat, you know, at least once in a blue moon. All right. I get for people that, you know, you bounced around everywhere, you got friends all around, and sometimes the only way y'all keep up with each other is through social media now. You know, maybe it was work friends and you moved to another location. Like, I get it, but you know, social media has got to be a tool, not you know, a feature of your life, like what you're saying, Conscious. Like for me, I use it as a tool. Like at least me and my boys, or like the communities I'm part of, like we're posting our rides, we're arguing about who's got the best mods or the best speakers and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, you know, we showing off our like men, we like showing off our gadgets, our toys, and our man caves and shit like that. If I'm ever in a situation where I need a bunch of likes because I'm trashing somebody personally on social media, I don't care what that situation is, I fail.
Yeah.
Because if I'm using social media to air out personal grievance, you know, your dirty laundry stuff that needs that yeah, you should have called or text or something like that. It doesn't matter the scenario at this point. It's an automatic failure for everyone involved. Right? It shows a lack of immaturity. I think it does. Conscious shows shallowness in the relationship between the individual or individuals, as you're saying. Right? Like, I mean, hell, Conscious, we text each other, and then even through social media like that. You know what I mean? Like most of my friends and my closest family, we text, we share pictures. Yeah, like some of the most biggest events, that's who you share it with. You're not gonna find out. We're not gonna be so-called besties. And this major event in my life, you found out on Instagram. Like that's kind of crazy, right? And I think your method's pretty good.
Yeah. I only I I don't even like texting, to be honest. Like I will only I do more I allow more texting. Yeah, like I do more text. I will allow more texting if the relationship is local, because I know that we actually have space and time to actually like get up and do 3D things. But
Right.
if like the relationship is long distance, yeah, like those relationships, I make sure like we got a video chat, we got to talk on the phone. Like I gotta hear you. I gotta find a way to substitute that lack of 3D, and I don't. And because it's already long distance, the consistent texting is just really not going to. It can help for those who like. For some reason, my brain does not allow me to accept text as a meaningful exchange. Like I can for me, like my brain really uses text for practical things, but I really don't like be trying to have no real fucking conversation through text. Like if it's like if you're trying to really have a moment, like just actually engage me and create the moment. Like don't be communicating like your heart and your soul through bold black letters on a screen. I mean, that's just kind of like, I don't know, it's like upside down as hell to me. So I'm really like, I don't know. I have really struggled with this age of social media because it really is raping the essence out of a lot of meaningful exchanges, and it's creating these like artificially flavored engagements. And because I know what the real thing tastes like and feel like, I'm never going to be able to be quite satisfied with the artificially flavored. I prefer like real bananas and not these like GMO relationships, but like these, you know, from the mud up ass exchanges. And I have just accepted that that's who I am and that's what I want. And I no longer feel like guilty about not participating in relationships through this medium. I used to feel guilty because it's like, this is what everybody doing. This is where everybody at. This is how everybody getting down. And I need to find a way to make this like, I need to find a way to accept this. And then the more I tried to, the more miserable it made me because it's just not me. And I don't come from I'm so glad to be a millennial and have lived in the world prior to, because I actually have like a reference for the world without all that shit. And I able to make compare and contrast between both dimensions.
And now you can try to pull from both worlds.
Yeah, like I'm able to then like really utilize the strengths of both worlds and, you know, be aware of the weaknesses of both. And I'm able to just have that customizable. So instead of just allowing this age to tell me or to inform me entirely, it's me kind of taking my power back and saying, no, I don't have to participate in this way. I don't have to use this way. I don't have to engage in this way. I can create my own system. And it is up to me to just, you know, commit myself to living and engaging the people in my life in a way that means something to me, even if that's different from the way that, you know, the rest of the world now is moving, which is toward a more virtual, digital reality. But I'm not joining in on the hype and on the trend. I'm keeping a large chunk of the old school.
Yeah, I feel it. I like modern tech. I like adapting and evolving. I have some traditional aspects, but like that's why I like panels, because I'm like, okay, we live in a digital age. People, you know, in and out. Oh shit, we got panels, we got Discord. So you want to hop in, chat a little bit, or have a discussion and things like that. You know, people in and out, like, cool. Because guess what? We're still speaking to each other. You know, we're still engaged in an actual conversation, not through you know a massive wall of text.
Yeah. And Dion, not Dion, but Shauna says, you know, talking about now, you know, how, you know, the misinterpretation that can come through text. And that's also like, that's why I say, like, you just have to have like friendship and group boundaries. Like if we agree that we're going to go out together and spend some quality time together, then we also agree to largely not use our phones to substitute the empty space. Like we're actually going to engage each other. Like, you know, I don't want to sit at dinner with you and be talking to you while you're also scrolling through Instagram, you know, or I'm not going to be letting you talk to me and you're sharing with me, you know, like what's going on and stuff going on at the job, or, you know, stuff going on with the kids. And I'm sitting there looking at you, I'm ad-libbing, but I'm also sharing you with Facebook, which is going to be there in an hour when I get home. Why do I need to also integrate that into this moment with this real life person who may not be there in an hour? You may not even be alive by tomorrow. And I'm sharing you with something that is immortal while you are a completely temporal being. So like I have agreements in my family ships and friendships to where it's like, if we're going to like, you know, really take time to be together, then let's actually focus on like giving each other that time. And also it's interesting to me because social media has also, I don't know, like it's stripped away also the creativity that otherwise would manifest between two people trying to figure out how to use each other to entertain each other. But now it's like those creative juices don't even have to flow, because once again, you can just defer to social media, you know, for your entertainment, even together. Versus like in the old world, me and my friends would actually like go out. Like we would go create experiences in the world. Like we became like the world was our social media, and we also sometimes became the source of entertainment. Like and having nothing but each other encouraged, you know, us, you know, it encouraged us to have real personalities and to have real engagements, because that's all we had was ourselves. But now with social media, it's like, you know, it's just so easy to be lazy as a group. It's easy to be lazy together, even in spending time. And I don't know, it's just like you know, like I've just tried my best to not let social media be a side chick in my relationships with my loved ones. I honestly just really can't stand social media. I just can't stand it. I cannot. I'm just gonna be honest. I can't stand social. I cannot stand it. I hate it. I hate social media, and that's weird because I'm a content creator. Yeah, I hate social media. Like, I hate it. But because I'm learning. I'm learning this thing. I'm striving to figure it all out.
Yeah, I got lucky. I've had a different experience with social media for the most part. Like I love, like I hated a few years ago on Facebook, or the ESPN used to have like the Facebook comment section. And so, oh my God, I miss it so much, Conscious, because we as men, that's where we like congregate, is like sports networks and stuff like that, right? And so you really, at this point, like you really had to be on your A game when you typed out a paragraph for who you defended or what team you repping. And if you even missed a fucking decimal point in them statistics, the entire community is roasting you to no end. You know what I mean? But like it was like a gladiator arena that we love, but that was the unifying factor, right? It was the sports. And then like I find the car communities and people like Beamer clubs and stuff like that, and things that I'm interested in, like for example, the people who take astronomy photography. Yeah, those be some crazy photos that they capture. And it's just cool to you just hashtag photography, hashtag carbon fiber, you know what I mean? And now we're engaging over that thing, but that's for me because I've always used social media as nothing more than a tool, you know what I mean? And that luckily that's worked out for me.
Yeah, and that's what I encourage is, like everybody to just be empowered by like letting social media revolve around your personality versus it be the other way around. Like, because we're all different and we have different capacities for input, output, and we all, just have the things that make us unique. And so, shape your relationship around these things based upon you, and instead of letting like social media decide for you, because if you let that happen, it's like you're just going to find yourself in the eye of the storm. You're just going to be like swirling around, being thrashed
That's
out.
said, the algorithm is the killer.
Yeah,
the algorithm dictates how you engage. Oof.
So
situation.
So I guess in piling it, like taking the car all the way back to the initial subject about men experiencing a friendship recession, obviously social media can be a positive, which this guy named Quincy, he utilized social media to create something real in his actual life. Because he could have easily just created an online forum.
True.
Instead, he could easily just created a online group, but he actually social media was a utility instead of a destination. It was just more of a tool, and these men are now able to embark on a real physical brotherhood and friendship and get the interactiveness that they need from, as you said, being able to like look into people's eyes and hear people's laughter and go and enjoy nature together and go out into the world together, and to really like have a community and people to share your life with, people you can bring into your life, bring into your home, people that you can be by the side of and who can support you and you support them. I think that's a brilliant step in the right direction, and that's also one of the positives that can come out of social media, which is like largely based upon what we use it for. What would you also like encourage men to do who like feel lonely? Like, do you encourage like men to be more vocal and admit that to themselves so that they can then?
Can I be straight up conscious?
Yeah.
Specifically to black men. Stop calling all these different activities that are foreign to you white. Black people can snowboard. Black people can ski. Yes, black people, because we're black Americans, so we're not, born and raised in Africa. We can go on safaris. We can get passports. You can be bougie, right? You can be country. You can ride four-wheelers. You can ride pickup trucks, right? You can climb the top of the corporate ladder, right? You can go hiking.
You can go whitewater rafting.
Right. You can go camping. Okay. This shit is not white. It's just an activity. It's what people all around the world do.
And stop calling everything gay, because you can cuddle up with your bro in an open roasted fire and sit under a blanket together.
That's pretty gay. Even the gay people will call that pretty gay.
Yeah. Women do it all the time. Women do it. Women cuddle up. Women hold hands. Women are not afraid to be in physical proximity to other female bodies. This allow a level of depth and intimacy that's epic. I mean, this even reflected in the New Testament. Jesus was washing the feet of his disciples. They kissed each other. They hugged each other. They stripped that stigma from physical touch and embrace the vulnerability and the sacredness of love between people of the same sex, which isn't necessarily mutually exclusive to being homosexual. And so I think that black men could.
That's what we got wrestling for.
Yeah, like I think that black men could do better, because it's so funny that men largely are obsessed with physical contact sports, football, soccer, basketball, wrestling, kickboxing, but yet are afraid to fucking hug each other for more than 5 seconds. So it's like the only time touch should be a priority shouldn't be when you're being violent with each other or when you're being athletic, but you can also embrace that on an interpersonal level, and you would be surprised at how much strength and power and bond is strengthened, and also like strengthening the physical touch with like between you and members of the opposite. I mean, you and members of the same sex.
Yeah, I mean, whatever it is.
Taru said he ain't with all that shit.
I mean, hey, look, to each his own, man. But whatever it is, it still requires you being intentional about it, right?
Yeah.
Like if you find the community, most like you said, like at least a lot of those communities that's hands-on, or you got gadgets and toys. Yeah, it's more of a tool. You guys are sharing knowledge, but yeah, you guys are meeting up. You guys are doing some shit together. And by the way, that's when they really find out whether you're a fraud or not. And some of you guys, I think, really need to be in an uncomfortable situation. I think there's too many men conscious who haven't been forced, for whatever reason, really haven't been forced to be in uncomfortable situations. And so that's got to be manufactured by intentionally putting ourselves in uncomfortable situations. From even your perspective, as if from what you just suggested. You know what I mean? But yeah, like stop thinking things is gay, or stop thinking everything is just white people activities, or you too hood, or bro, stop saying you a real nigga, bro. What
niggas need
hugs?
Niggas need hugs. Most of these, because this is something that's missing. We've had so much female engagement because the women oftentimes stayed behind to take care of the family and provide, and they hugged and kissed and gave us bedtime stories. But a lot of these men are actually missing the love of an archetypal father figure. And because that absence was physically there, like the thing that can really close the gap and help to heal that childhood trauma too is once again actually embracing, hug each other. Like I come from a hugging ass family. Like the men in my family squeeze you up to death and plant a big ass kiss on your forehead, on your cheek. You know, that it's almost a event when they see you. Like almost like they're communicating they're communicating verbally, but through the embrace of deep hugs and just pulling you in and just giving you all that. And there's something powerful about, being given all of that, not just through words or just through an invite and, hey, come over and we sit together and, eat popcorn and watch sports together, but actually somebody just literally wanting to squeeze and kiss the love into you, wanting that to be a physical synergy imposed upon you. Like, I'm going to transfer the joy of you being here in my life and showing up I'm going to physically, biologically transfer that shit into your ass by way of touch. Touch is important. All of this is important. Spending time together, as Tyrus is saying, getting together, touch is important. And matter of fact, I was going to share that just a few days ago. I was on the phone with one of my heterosexual peers, and once again, because I'm like intentionally curving social media, I'm doubling down on making sure that I'm having the most like sentient, vulnerable expressions of my love for the people in my life that I can. So I was literally so uncomfortably yet vulnerably, rewardingly confessing my love to him. And I literally was telling him, I said, sometimes I'm going to come off as really gay. Really gay. I'm going to come off so deeply gay. But I just want you to know the context of all that sugar in this tank is my commitment to unapologetically and without shame standing in the sentimentalness that I truly authentically have for you and our connection and our friendship. And I don't want to strip myself or dilute that experience in myself. And I don't want to give it to you in a diluted fashion. Because if you were,
it's not gay to give your bros a hug,
because if you were to leave here tomorrow, I need to know that you knew how much you mean to me. And if I were to leave here tomorrow, once again, I need to know that I showed up fully in this love. And I ain't give a damn. And guess what? My homeboy met me right in the middle, baby. And it was a sappy, feminine ass moment. And we are going to uncomfortably create a new normal in our friendship by not being ashamed to have affection toward each other and to show affection, whether that's verbal affection, whether that's physical affection, whatever it is, that we are not going to allow social stigmas and patriarchy and social media and all these things that are trying to just kick up the walls to exist. And we're going to be present. We're going to be present. And that's the way I want to live, because I feel so much more well when I don't have to give a fuck about being misunderstood, and when I can just exist in the feel good that's in me, and I can transfer that to you and demonstrate that to you through action or through words or through whatever it is. I'm at my best humanity when I am stripped of a fuck to give. I don't care. And I love that I'm getting connected to other people who are taking that journey too. And they're saying to themselves too, who really does give a fuck? At the end of the day, I showed up to be loved. I showed up to be cared for. I showed up to be taken care of. I showed up to have support in my life and to have people who believe in me. I showed up for all this shit. And the powerful thing about emotions, Tyrus, is that I look at emotions as our emotions are our metaphorical taste buds. If you are numbing yourself to your feelings, as terrible as feeling can be sometimes, and as much as it can feel like a curse, it also is literally the shit that life is made and love is made out of. And when you just open your heart to that shit and you do not allow filters to exist, it is just the most exhilarating shot of serotonin, dopamine. It's the shit that good quality crack is made out of. It's such a brilliant, and this is why we attracted to religion. This is why we attracted to spiritual systems, because they encourage this love and this letting go and this opportunity to divorce the material world and materiality and these material barriers, and to give ourselves over to this ecstasy that turns into some people completely passing out, running around, shouting, crying, stomping, dancing. It turns into this expression. It turns into this art. It turns into this personification, because it's energy unrestricted. And that's what love is, when you just let it be love. And you don't make it about gay, straight, man, woman, and you just let it be about love. And what's understood don't need to be no it don't need to be no understanding. And in perfect love comes perfect trust. To just be able to be. And I just want to specifically encourage men's community to take some pointers out of the women's book, because they're getting a lot of this shit right, which is once again why those statistics look a whole lot better for them in terms of their relationship to themselves. They're living longer, they're lasting longer, they're more satisfied in their friendships and relationships, because there's reciprocation and there's emotional engagement and emotional vulnerability. They're more present. Men need this. And I'm so glad that as embarrassing as Quincy and his group may seem, that on some level there may be a cringe factor, that it's so inspiring and light and love to men bringing voice to their loneliness and to their feelings, and men being bold enough to take these emotional journeys into themselves and be able to take that with each other. That is some really revolutionary shit, and Black men deserve that. In a world that has emasculated them, that has decapitated them, that has reduced them and controlled their truth and their narrative since the beginning, Black men deserve this too. Black women deserve it, and Black men deserve it too. Men deserve it.
Yep.
Huh?
Well said.
Yeah, it is well said. And we've been here for 3.5 hours. I think this was good, Tyrus.
Damn, we've been here that long. I didn't even, man, we was cruising.
Yeah, it kind of didn't. It really didn't feel like it really, but it kind of did. But it kind of didn't.
This was awesome.
Like, look, people in the comment were saying, "The girl, this is the best shows, and these are the type of shows you only gonna get here." This was one of the best shows that's happening.
Man,
yeah, because see, I saw how that friendship recession conversation went on the other platform. No comparison. No comparison. Night and day, baby. This how you have a dialogue, chaotic truth about.
Come on, it wasn't that bad, man. Come on.
This how you commentate, bitch, about friendship recession, chaotic truth. This how you do that, Fizzle. Shout out to you, Tyrus.
Man, shout out to you, Conscious. This was amazing. This was a dope convo. We really broke it down, and we came to like a nice solution. You really nailed a nice solution. I appreciate that.
So did you, and you are doing a mighty work yourself, being a atypical masculine asshole out of all of the boys' spaces, and yet you are walking your talk. You are being unapologetic. You're being unafraid. You are not ashamed of your relationship to all types of other men, whether they be gay, whether they be hyper masculine, alpha male, that you are existing in your own authenticity. And that's something that men need too. Like, it's okay to be like yourself, and it's okay to also be picked on for being who you are. And matter of fact, like, that's really the test of your masculinity. It's not whether you will conform to that bullying, but your ability to maintain a middle finger to that shit and do
hold steady.
Yeah, to carry your fucking cross. Like, bitch, fuck y'all hoes. Fuck y'all niggas.
I really need my guys to understand. I know even with social media, it might appear that way, but I promise you guys, like, look, not everybody is meant to like each other, but eventually, especially you walk your own path, you will find your crew, a community that's worth it, that you really feel a part of, that camaraderie that we all search for. I promise you, man. As long as you stay true to yourself and you don't fall to the wayside with bullying. I know it's hard. I know it's easier said than done, but you got to keep that resilience. We have to.
Got to. Tyrus, I got a feeling it's just a matter of time before Tyrus TV manifests. Warlock TV manifests.
I'm really at this point. Woo. Who knows? We'll see.
We will. Well, I want to thank you for being here. This was absolutely amazing, and
thank you for inviting me, Conscious.
Of course, it was awesome. I'm gonna let you get out and get to the rest of your night.
And all right, you have a great evening.
You do the same.
All right.
That was Tyrus the Warlock, you guys. Epic show. I actually got energy back from this show. Like, this is good. That it's a good sparring and it's a good vibe when you're giving energy, because commentating and all that shit and collaborations, you give a lot of energy, but to get it, it's like when you're more energized after sex, that's how it was some real reciprocal shit, some real life happening here. So I have to agree with everybody. This is definitely my best show of the year so far. This is the type of shit that the platform is made out of. This is the type of content that is really true to my heart and that I'm the most proud of. I'm so glad to be, excellent in all the other styles of commentary and content that I provide, baby. But, this is the ministry here. So this was dope. Shout out to Tyrus. Shout out to y'all. Thank y'all for being here. I know that most of the conscious crew is popping pussy. It's Saturday. They out shopping and bootlegging shit and, doing all that in the world, connecting with their snaky links and, being in the world, girl. But replay gang, shout out to y'all. And please thumbs up this video and share and tell a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend. And I'll see y'all later. Bye.